Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 18th, 2024 edition of the Northborough Select Board, which I will call to order. My name is Mitch Cohen, and I chair this fantastic group at 7:02 p.m. And because we have a member remote tonight, I will read some opening announcements. This open meeting of the Northborough Select Board is being conducted in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the Northborough Select Board are allowed and encouraged to participate either in person or remotely. The Act allows the Northborough Select Board to meet entirely in person and remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded, so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream or the recording of this meeting can do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lisa Maselli.
Here.
Laura Zeiton.
Here.
Julianne Hirsch.
Here.
And Mike Tejan.
Here.
And I'm Mitch Cohen. I am here. And staff, we've got up at the table here, we have Town Administrator Steph Bacon.
Hello.
And Assistant Town Administrator Di Wackel.
Here.
And we have some excellent guests that will be joining us this evening as well. First on our agenda, essentially as always, is public comment. Is there anyone on either in person or remote that wishes to offer any comment on anything, particularly anything that's not on the agenda, because we'd love you to comment during an agenda item. If so, raise your electronic or real hands. Not seeing any hands go up yet. Going once. Going twice. All right, public comment is closed. Next up, we've got a couple of sets of meeting minutes, October 28th and November 4th of 2024. Are there any motions?
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to approve the meeting minutes from October 28th, 2024 as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, roll call vote. Julianne?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. Those minutes are approved. Next up, we have November 4th, 2024. Any motions?
I move the board vote to approve the meeting minutes from November 4th, 2024 as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Lisa, seconded by Julianne. Any discussion? All those in favor, Lisa?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
I also vote aye. That vote is unanimous in favor. Thank you very much for the preparation of those meeting minutes. Next up, we have a public hearing, which I will read the opening announcement of. I will open the public hearing with the Board of Assessors for the purpose of discussing the proposed valuation of each class of property, and also after the hearing to vote on a residential factor and the allocation of the tax burden among the four classes of real property: residential, open space, commercial, and industrial, and of personal property. Lee, come on up. You're welcome to stand there or sit down at the table, whichever works for you. Got a show for us? Thank you.
Does that mean the mic is on if the red light's on?
Yes.
Okay.
If you could do us a favor for those at home, if you could introduce yourself and give us a run through.
My name is B. Kiomani Bong. I'm the principal assessor for the town of Northborough. My board members were supposed to be here for moral support, but here I am. Welcome to FY25's tax classification hearing. Oh, it seems to be not clicking through. Cities and towns whose values that have been certified by the state are allowed to shift the tax burden from over the major classes. The purpose of this meeting is to present this board all pertinent information for you to make some policy decisions. We'll be going over relevant data, some of the options involved, and some of the results from those options. Please feel free to stop me at any time if you have any questions about anything that I'm going over. I'll definitely answer any questions at the end as well. The two main components when we talk about the tax classification hearing are town valuation and the property tax levy. Town valuation is where I come in. I'm going to be going over all the town values for FY25, where they came from, some of the trends that we saw, and the overall makeup of the town, residential versus CIP. Just for tonight, I know CIP, you guys usually think about a capital improvement plan. Just for tonight, it stands for commercial, industrial, personal property, okay? The other component is the property tax levy. It's the portion of the budget that gets paid through property taxes. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of this year's FY25 budget, some of the funding sources that kind of chipped away at that big budget number, leaving us with the estimated property tax levy. As we move forward, you'll see how both of these components just kind of come together when we take a look at this year's tax rate options. We actually have 4 options to discuss. The first is the mandatory one. You need to make a vote on this. It's basically the single versus the split rate. We'll concentrate more on this. I'll definitely go over any questions that you have. The other 3 are optional. A lot of assessors don't bother presenting this to town boards. Legally, I am supposed to present all these options. Open space discount doesn't really apply to Northborough, as you'll see, and residential exemption and the small commercial exemption.
Interrupt just for a second. I got some feedback from someone watching remotely. This is more for Owen, that your microphone is staticky. It is. Okay. Is there a way we can correct that, or would it be better for? Okay. All right. Sorry to ruin your moment here.
I think the microphone's too far away.
Okay.
This one here?
All right. Thanks for adjusting for us.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. I think okay, for tax options, residential and small commercial exemption. I know there were some questions on that in a previous meeting. I'll definitely go over each of those options. If you have any questions, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware and understands all those options. Okay, so for FY25, the values were based on how your property stood as of January 1, 2024. They were based primarily from sales from calendar 2023, commercial and industrial expense data from calendar 2023, personal property forms of list, and field inspections done by my staff. Some of the statistical averages that we saw: single families, condos, and 2 families increased by about 6%. 3 families by 3%. Commercial properties, it was like 9.4 to 9.8%, so I just rounded up about 10%. Commercial properties and big apartment complexes by 5.6, and vacant land saw an increase of about 16%. I don't have that. Are we able to get rid of that bottom? Well, the overall, the town saw an increase of about 6%.
Yeah, it was 262, 172, 640. It just blocked by the, yeah.
There we go. Yep, an increase of about 262 million in assessed value, or about 6%. Just to give you an overview of the town from last year to this year, the total town value went from 4.25 billion to 4.5 billion. The makeup of the town pretty much stayed the same, about 73% residential, 27% CIP. And these increases included both market adjustments and new growth. Throughout the year, my office reviews and captures new growth valuation and submits it to the state for approval. New growth is anything that was previously not captured or just put on the tax roll for the first time. If I'm going from a vacant lot to a brand-new house, the value of that new building is considered new growth. The town of Northborough saw about 36.6 million in new growth valuation. Some of this included 7 new single-family homes. I put completed. I have a handful of buildings that were just started or just partially constructed. Those will be captured next year. 1 2-family, a couple of warehouse buildings and retail buildings, and several major renovation and addition projects. The majority of my new growth comes from renovation and addition projects. The approved new growth value resulted in about $523,000 in taxable, tax levy growth. This amount is actually used in the calculation for this year's levy limit. Just an overview of the new growth. Majority of it was residential. For the CIP, it was mostly personal property, the big utility companies, the big warehouses, those accounts. Excuse me. We talked about valuation. Now let's talk about the property tax levy. It is the portion of the budget that gets paid through property taxes. As you can see, it's usually the largest part of the budget. And I just wanted to just give you an idea of this year's budget. We slowly chip away at that big budget number through different funding sources, state aid, local receipts, some of the enterprise funds. That big budget number also includes certain things that the finance officer didn't talk about in previous meetings, like that settlement for Marlborough with the sewer. So that is included in this budget. The enterprise funds actually take care of that, so it's not on the property tax levy. This year's property tax levy, estimated property tax levy is $64,378,721. Again, it's usually the largest source of the budget. We are limited from year to year on how much we can levy on the for each tax levy. Oh, I'm sorry. If you've all heard of Prop 2.5, a lot of property owners kind of get this wrong. They think it's individual. It's not. It's the entire levy. And as you can see, we go by last year's levy limit, add the 2.5%, add my new growth that my office captured this year, we get about 64.4 million. From this, the law allows us to also add what we call debt exclusions. These are principal and interest payments for past projects. I believe this is the library and the senior center. For those of you who might be asking, the fire station is not part of this debt exclusion. That'll be for next year, if that comes up. So as you can see, this year's maximum allowable levy is about 66.9 million. This year's estimated levy is 64.3, and we are well below our maximum allowable, about 2.5 million in excess levy capacity. Okay. The reason why we're here, this select board must choose to determine the percentage of the tax levy to be paid among the major classes. You really have 2 options. Adopting a residential factor of 1, that will result in all classes paying at the same rate. It's called the single tax rate. The other one is adopting a residential factor of less than 1. When that happens, the residential share will decrease, the CIP share will increase, and that will result in the major classes being taxed at different tax rates. It's commonly known as the split tax rate. And just to show you how we get there, we have this thing. The town budget minus all funding sources, we're left with the tax levy. We have the value of the town, 4.5 billion. And if I take the tax levy divided by the value of the town, I get an estimated single tax rate. This is the basic formula behind it. If the board chooses, you can actually leave this the way it is. This is one of the options. This is a residential factor of 1, resulting in a single tax rate. And should you choose to do so, should you decide on a residential factor of 1, the single tax rate will be $14.25 for all classes. This means on an average single-family value this year, that average tax bill will be about $9,463. It's an increase about $546 or 6% from FY24. The tax on the commercial property will be around $23,572. That's an increase of $871 or about 4% from last year. When I use the averages for commercial values, I'm excluding the combined value of the mall. They just kind of skew all my averages if they're included. Historically, the select board has voted on a residential factor of 1. This is a 10-year look back. From what I can tell, it's always been a single tax rate. This is just just showing you the trend of the average single-family tax bill. And this is how we compare next to our immediate neighbors. I have Northborough here in the red. We're usually right in between Grafton and Shrewsbury, a little less than Westborough and Southborough as far as the average single-family tax bill. Same thing with the average single-family value in general. Just under Grafton, and well, we're usually neck and neck with Shrewsbury. I really don't like using them as a comp. They're more of like a small city, but we're usually less than Westborough and Southborough.
Could you go back
yes.
to that one?
Yes.
What is average single-family value? What do you mean?
So
family?
like a single-family property,
Oh,
this is the
single-family
average value, like in general. So I'm taking the combined value of everything divided by how many parcels we have. That's how the state measures like the average single-family.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
The other option is a residential factor of less than 1. When we say shift the burden, the levy does not change. You're actually shifting who pays what. So in this scenario, this is an example of shifting the burden by 10%. You're actually reducing the residential share, that goes down, and the CIP share goes up. With this 10% shift, the tax rates also change. The estimated tax rate for a residential property goes from $14.25 to $13.72. The CIP increases from $14.25 to $15.68. The tax bills also follow suit. The residential tax bill with the 10% shift will be reduced by $352. Commercial property bill, on the other hand, increases by about $2,300. It's just the nature of, because they're valued higher, they're going to see a larger increase. And this is just a chart of like all the available shifts going from residential factor of 1 all the way down to our maximum shift. And as you can see, as you shift the burden from res to CIP, the tax bills decrease on the residential side, but the commercial bills increase a little more significantly. Some of the pros and cons. First and foremost, it offers property owners tax relief. That's not questioned there. As far as the cons, the shift would be a greater burden to some of the higher valued CIP properties that already pay a large portion of the tax levy. Not really seen as business friendly. Increases in property expenses, including taxes, typically get passed on to the tenants. The majority of our businesses are tenants when I did my review. And higher commercial taxes can reduce commercial values over time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it gradually shifts the makeup of the town. Do we have any questions on the single versus?
Are any of the other towns, Grafton, Shrewsbury, Southborough, Westborough, they're all single rate?
They're all single rates, yep. I think the only one, well, other than Marlborough, I think Hudson is, but they shift like really weird. They shift all the way to the max. Yeah. Any other questions on this?
I had a question, back a few slides, you don't need to go back, is with a factor of 1, I think you said that the rate would be $14.25.
Yes.
And the average increase, or the increase on an average single-family house would go up $546.
From last year to
From
this
last
year.
year.
Yep.
What was presented at town meeting? I know at town meeting, we do an early projection for how it would be, so people know what they're voting. I don't remember what those numbers were, recollection. I don't know, if Jason, if you have that.
Pardon me, through the chair. This was included in the packet from the last meeting, from the 11-4 meeting. We did include that in the FY25 update information, and I do have the memo with me, so let me just dig it out.
Okay. Yeah, I just think that now that we're seeing this, I think it's good to see that in comparison, so we can, and folks at home will know.
They did go down, and that was the good,
Yeah.
good news. I mean, the bad news is they're going up, but the good news is it's going up less than what we projected at town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So we projected $616 was going to be the increase, but it's actually $545.
Okay, good, all right. Yeah, no, I mean, it's good news because the body at town meeting approved a budget increase that everybody knew would cost them an additional $616 for an average single-family house, but the same budget was actually coming in better than that at 546. So I think that's, that's the right direction that we'd want to go relative to an early estimate.
Right, and I don't mean to
Yep.
get in the way of the
Okay.
flow of this.
Yep, no, I just didn't want to lose track of that. Okay.
I'm sorry, are there any other questions regarding single versus split? Yes.
So personal property grew, personal property tax, do I recollect that in one of the slides that showed that increased?
Yep, if I can go, that was mostly new accounts and the larger accounts. We have big utility companies, N-Star, Eversource, National Grid. They have significant equipment and machinery. They do both. They retire certain ones that are much older, but they also add a large amount. Those were my biggest ones. The big warehouse facilities, their personal property accounts were also significant. Those were the big ones that grew that portion of the town value.
And how do you assess that? Do you go to the building and?
We do have a vendor that we use for personal property. Not all personal property is the same. Some of it is very simple. If I have an office here, tables, chairs, computer equipment. Some of it, like the local telephone companies like Verizon, the state actually gives us the value and the new growth every year. We also have the big ones like the big utility companies. Those, they give us a rendering, all their equipment that they have on file for last year. We also have to do an appraisal done, and both those numbers coming together according to the state, we have to value them that way. So not all personal property is the same, but we do use a vendor that gives us all those services.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. Anything else?
Yes.
Oh, Lisa, yeah. Sorry, I don't have the screen up.
When you're talking about the personal property tax and this, the vendor that you use, do they
Yes.
go and do all of the personal properties? Do they do part of them every year? I mean, I know we have a lot of smaller businesses or whatever that have kind of the honor system, that they put in what they own. Does this vendor only work with the bigger ones, or does it go around equally to the smaller ones as well?
No, we have a contract with our current vendor. The state wants all accounts, both personal property and real, to be visited once every certain amount of years. The personal property vendor accounts started, I believe, 3 years ago. They did a quarter, and then another quarter, and then another quarter. So by the end of next year, all personal property accounts will be visited. Next year is our certification year, so we needed to get everybody visited to comply with the state. So they have visited. It didn't happen all in 1 year. They chose certain amounts throughout the year, over the last 3 years.
Right, and do you, of course, some businesses come and go. Do you work to make sure that everybody that's on that list is current and is actually a business that's viable? Or do you wait again through the year to see if maybe some of them have closed and left?
Our values are as of a certain date, January 1. So if they were open for business, if they close February 1, they are still liable for the personal property tax. We do use our vendor and also touch base with our town clerk just to make sure if there are DBAs present or anything closed out. We try to make sure that the account, if it's active, they get a bill. If it's not, we try to wipe it out before the setting of final values.
Okay.
Okay?
Thanks, Lisa.
All right. Anything else?
Any other questions? And this is a public hearing, so we'll open it up to the public in a moment. But any other questions or comments from the board before we hear from the public? Okay. This is a public hearing. If anyone, either in the audience in person or remote, would like to offer any input or comment or ask questions, please raise your electronic hands or your real hands if you're in person. I'll be more than happy to recognize you. Okay, I see one hand up. Karen Chapman. Karen, if you could unmute, identify yourself, let us know what's on your mind, please.
Hi, my name's Karen Chapman, president of the Quarter 495 Regional Chamber of Metro West. Can you hear me?
We hear you fine, Karen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak. I'm here to advocate for maintaining a single tax classification on behalf of your Northborough business community. Under your current single tax structure, Northborough has prospered through the development and growth of businesses, which has led to new jobs and tax revenue in your town. In fact, over the last couple of months, the Chamber held ribbon-cutting celebrations for 6 of your small businesses that opened their businesses in Northborough, which was pretty exciting. And we believe a single tax rate is a positive tool in helping to attract new businesses. Single tax rate allows Northborough to stay competitive with surrounding communities. Single tax rate is equitable because businesses use minimal town services. A single tax rate is equitable because of the town of Northborough receives significant property taxes from local businesses, and that revenue is part of the tax base, which helps to offset real estate taxes for residents. And by maintaining a single tax rate, it's consistent with 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth who do maintain a single tax rate. And also, your local businesses play a huge role in supporting the quality of life in Northborough by contributing thousands of dollars in funds and resources for athletics, recreation, scholarships, veterans, and community events. Very pleased to say, just last week, the Chamber member businesses donated over 400 food items for your Northborough Cares for Troops food pantry. So on behalf of the business community of Northborough, I'd like to urge you to continue your legacy of maintaining a single tax rate, to continue to attract and retain businesses in our community and promote business development in your town. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, Karen. Appreciate that. We did receive a few emails similar in referencing the Chamber of Commerce from, I think, about 5 members of the community, businesses and residents alike, that I think all board members have received those. Oh, Lisa, you've got your electronic hand up. I usually only look at the attendee list. Feel free to yell out anything.
I know, that's
Yeah.
why I put my hand up.
Yeah, thank
Must
you.
be prepared. I have a question on this slide that says additional tax rate options. So have we finished? I mean, once we're done with questions, is this going to come off, or are we going to
going.
continue to talk about
Oh,
any of
Lee,
this?
Lee still has, you still have additional slides?
Just these options here.
Okay,
Yeah. Legally, I'm supposed to present the board.
okay, all right, so you haven't completed?
I have not completed.
Oh, okay, then go forward, and then we'll continue our discussion.
All right.
Thank you.
Sure. Open space discount, it's, open space, you hear it, in, planning department and conservation. In my world, it's, a privately owned property that's left alone where, the public can just like, walk around on it. It's not really popular. I don't have any parcels in town, that uses, this, classification, so, you don't need to, consider this. Residential exemption.
I'm sorry, Laura has a question.
Ooh, yes.
So our open space doesn't qualify for that exemption?
It's not the same thing. So if I own a parcel, what my board pushes on properties that have large acreage are the chapter programs. Open space,
okay.
yeah. This is kind of. I believe towns don't really use this because of liability issues.
Okay.
You know, somebody like trips and breaks their ankle on my lot, I get sued.
Okay.
So again, as far as like 10 years, going back 10 years, we've never used this classification.
Got it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Sure. Residential exemption. This is applying an exemption for owner-occupied properties. You're basically shifting the burden from owner-occupied properties onto non-owner-occupied properties. This will shift only in the residential class. It's not really common. 18 out of 352 communities use it. You see it in cities like Boston, Cambridge, Brookline, a lot of high-rises, a lot of apartment buildings that are non-owner occupied. Those communities chose to shift the burden from the owner-occupieds onto those apartment buildings. Down by the Cape, on the islands, a lot of vacation homes, secondary homes. Those communities chose to shift the burden from the owner-occupieds onto the non-owner-occupied properties. Doesn't really work here in Northborough. The majority of our parcels are owner-occupied. Just to give you an example, this is an example of a 10% shift. This is all of the residential properties. This is the residential burden. And as it is, the tax rate will be $14.25. If we apply a 10% shift on the owner-occupieds, it actually drops the value of the residential class. When values go down, tax rate goes up. So as you can see, if we apply this exemption, just a 10% exemption, the tax rate increases just on the residential share. You're kind of artificially shifting the burden onto yourself because we don't have a large portion of apartment buildings or non-owner occupieds. My single family class, it's almost 90% owner occupied. You're not really shifting it anywhere. You'll be kind of artificially raising the tax rate on yourselves. Oh, I see a raised hand.
Lisa, you have a question?
Yes, you talked about non-owner occupied. So what would Avalon be? And what happens when you have apartment buildings? Those obviously are probably not owner occupied since they're maybe 12 or 15 or whatever. How is that?
Avalon would be one of the 23 apartment buildings that we have there. So in this case, you'd be shifting the burden onto Avalon and other non-owner occupied properties.
And right now they pay an equal amount? Or they pay a
Everybody
lesser?
pays the same tax rate based on their assessed value. So Avalon is multiple buildings, but it's one property. And I think this year it's our second highest taxpayer.
Okay.
Okay?
How does that work with, and this is just, for information, how does that work with affordable housing and the units that we have that are lower,
So I had to do a deep dive on some of the affordable housing. A lot of them have deed restrictions. The current owner has to not make a certain amount, and when they resell it, they have to sell it to a person of the same qualifications. I did a deep dive on them, on the units that are considered affordable, and it really depends on what is written in the deed, but consistently they're about 30 to 40% of assessed value. So if something that's selling for X amount, an affordable unit would be about 30% of that value. That's what I've seen with most of the deeds that I've read.
30% of or 30% discount?
Both, actually. It really depends on how the deed was written.
Okay.
Yeah. So not all of them are the same, and I have some that are in the same complex, but the deeds are different, and they're using different rates. But I'm going by what their deeds are saying. But they are significantly lower than current assessed values.
So, I mean, that it calls into question how much more, services that are expended on a tax revenue that isn't like equal to what the regular residents might be. So if that's 30%, like Mitch said, that's pretty significant. Where is that defrayed, or can it be defrayed? Like, if I'm a builder and I want to build affordable houses, I get some sort of a tax credit or something. So how does that work for us in being able to have income from that?
My job is to make sure their assessment is accurate. For the affordables, they have certain deed restrictions. So if I were to value them at full value, they can challenge my value and show me their deeds, and they might win on appeal. So I've chosen to follow their deed information.
I think another way of saying that is you're assessing on the actual potential resale value of the property, and because there's a deed restriction that reduces
Their potential.
the potential value of the property, you have to assess it at a lower value in comparison to
Right.
a similar property that doesn't have the same deed restriction.
Right.
Because they would have to sell it for less than
Right, there's
fair
usually
market
some
value
type of
otherwise.
restriction on a resale, yes. Yep.
Does that answer
So
your
that's
question, Lisa?
Well, the restriction is, I mean, I've never seen one of these deeds, so the restriction is basically the resale value of it, or is there more to it than that?
Most cities and towns review 40B, well, I don't say just 40Bs, but affordable housing units, and kind of just defer to their specific deed, how it was purchased, how it was built. Maybe the builder had certain restrictions, and those restrictions will always stay on that particular property. It's generally how assessors deal with it. There are certain formulas, but for the most part, we follow whatever rates are on the specific deeds and the deed writers.
So the value that's placed at the time of the deed for being the value of the house in its sale, and what they can increase it to or not, is where you get your change, correct?
I personally look at them every year, and I make my adjustments accordingly. So if, like, in 1 year values are up a certain amount, I'll make sure that certain affordable units do increase, but are still restricted according to what the deed writer says.
And do you know if the state pays taxes on properties that they own, or do they not?
I think Jason might have.
You have a payment in lieu of taxes.
Yeah, certain, yeah.
Yeah, they pay, it's part of our local receipts, we collect a payment in lieu of taxes from the state for they essentially value their property, and they do pay taxes, but it's through the payment in lieu of taxes rather than as a tax assessment.
Right, so
Right.
it's not part of the levy, it's an estimated receipt?
it's a local.
Yeah, it's a local receipt.
Okay, so I didn't hear you because you're so far from the mic, but
Why not?
could you, sorry, Jason, could you say that again where it's
Yeah, so
us out here in TV land or?
they do pay a form of taxes. It's a payment in lieu of taxes. It's a calculation that gets made based on the value of the property, similar to taxes, but it's a local receipt rather than a tax receipt.
And do you know how many state-owned properties we have?
No.
I don't have that information in front of me, but,
Two categories of state-owned property. I mean, there's watershed land that comes in through one piece of that's a local receipt. We also get money through our state aid accounts for state-owned land. I know there's a Mass Highway garage that's owned that comes in through one form, and then the DCR land comes in through the payment in lieu of taxes. So, like I said, I know there's at least two properties. There may be more parcels in the system. I can't speak to that. One payment's I think it's about $120,000 that we get from the state in total.
And, I mean, this may be far afield from what we're talking about tonight, but in the case of having senior housing and such that once was Northborough owned, but then the state or the state made matches and therefore then the state is in charge of the land or owns the properties now, do they do the same thing?
I don't know if there are any housing units that are owned by the state. Usually they're owned by housing authority or some other agency or group.
Well, because I mean, I've been at a couple of the meetings at the village, and there was discussion about not being able to get things done because the state had to approve certain things because they were the ones actually in charge of what was being done over there. Is that just
I think that has anything to do with taxes.
If we're talking about the housing authority land and land that's under the control, or properties that are under the control of the housing authority, they do pay a payment in lieu of taxes for non-elderly housing. Elderly housing is exempt, so we get a very small formulaic-based payment from the housing authority as a payment in lieu of taxes as well. I think it's $8,000, something like that.
if that, yeah.
Lee's office calculates the bill to the housing authority, so it's relatively small, but it's based on the affordable housing that is not elderly housing under a certain code of Mass law. So we do get some money from the housing authority if that's what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to put all the numbers together and what properties are worth what. So that's my only reason for asking. So thank you.
Any other questions on residential exemption? No? All right. Oop. Small commercial exemption, it's a 10% exemption on certain properties that qualify. To qualify, you need to be a commercial, not industrial, a commercial business, less than 10 employees, value less than $1 million. The exemption actually goes to the building owner, not necessarily the business owner. The state says 14 out of 352 communities adopted this. I talked to 4 of them. They had no idea what I was talking about. It's rarely used. It's hard to regulate. And at a glance, with Northborough, the majority of our businesses are tenants. And this, again, you'd be shifting the burden from a small portion over to the larger portions that already pay a significant amount. Okay, any questions on this? Yes.
So that, when you say 10% of the property valuation, if it's, say, $900,000, you would assess it at
10%
10%
off
less?
of
So,
that.
like 800 some?
Yep, and again, the way you do it is by dropping the value, and it'll actually split the commercial tax rate. So the personal property accounts will actually have a lower tax rate compared to the other commercial and industrial properties. And again, it's rarely used. The smaller towns on the list that do use it, I don't say they don't like it, but it's just, again, very hard to regulate, and it's not really worth it just to give a small exemption to just a small amount of properties. Just split to do that, you'd be splitting the tax rate on the commercial side. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Just wanted to give you an idea of the top 10 taxpayers. Usually it's Avalon, but the owners of the two big warehouses that house Amazon are top there. As you can see, they pay about 14% of the CIP share, well, the entire levy, really. Okay. Oh. And as far as recommendations, my board did review the same information. They felt that this board should continue with a residential factor of 1 and the continued use of a single tax rate. Open space discount, there are no parcels involved here in town, so no need to move on that. And as far as residential exemption and small commercial exemption, because of the makeup of the town, it really should not be entertained by this board. I can answer any other questions.
Okay, Lisa, you have a question?
Yes, under the residential exemption, is there something, and there's certain towns that do it, is there something that could be offered to the seniors of a certain age to have their tax burden reduced?
I think we offer as much as we can with our personal exemptions. If you're a certain age and you own your property, if you do qualify, we offer that. I'm not sure if there's anything else.
I was going to say, we look closely at any new legislation that passes. We've passed every local option that's available to us under Mass General Law to offer senior tax exemptions and tax exemptions in general.
Yeah, and this year we recently upped it to up to doubling. That'll start this year.
Yeah. Yeah, the new state law that was approved about a year ago allowed us to increase some of those amounts, and we adopted that at the most recent town meeting.
Right. So we are doing everything currently under the law.
Yeah, if something
Would
new
you mind
comes across, we
Would you mind
consider
listing
it.
those?
I'm sorry?
Would you mind listing those so that the viewer might understand what they were? There's like 4 or 5 things, right?
Through the chair, I would recommend going to the assessor's webpage. There's a
actually what I'm
pretty
doing right now.
comprehensive table that's on that webpage that I look at all the time. It's color coded with columns that have different colors with different exemptions on it.
Colors.
So pretty.
There's a real estate tax relief programs section to the assessor's page. Click here to see the chart. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 9 items available. There's some related to military. There's one related to blind property owners. There's a senior tax exemption 41C. There's some hardship ones. Community Preservation Act exemption, senior tax deferral, which we've adopted and increased over the last couple of years. Elderly and disabled tax fund, which is a different thing that people can apply for, and there's also a senior work-off, which is not related to this, but is available to seniors that can.
And that also increased this year.
Yeah. I've worked with Jason each of the last couple of years to make sure that that everything that we can do, we present to town meeting, and town meeting has gratefully approved everything we've presented along those lines.
One question I have, you had mentioned earlier that the town of Hudson shifts towards CIP rather drastically. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
The other towns around us that have the single rate, you could argue that Hudson with its split rate still has, say, a much more vibrant downtown than Northborough, Westborough, Southborough, Shrewsbury, so how does Hudson, is there a difference in split tax rate with CIP with retail restaurant storefront versus large industrial, where we're kind of more on the industrial side, so it would, does it impact one in practice worse than the other? So I'm just trying to sort of square that.
No, if you do decide to split the rate, the commercial rate will be for all.
Right.
Small and big. As far as Hudson, the best way I can describe it, so if I take a commercial property, let's say if it's worth $1 million, the way I get that value is the potential gross income minus all my expenses. Some of it includes taxes, and that gets capitalized over a rate of return. Over time, if I increase the taxes, my expenses increase, so my value actually drops. So instead of $1 million property, it'll be 950 or 900. Right now, the makeup of the town is about 73-27, the CIP being 27%. Over 2 or 3 years, you might ask me what the makeup of the town is. It might turn into 75-25, 80-20, naturally, because you've increased, you've shifted the burden, and it kind of comes back onto the residential properties. That's kind of what happens to some of the split rates. It's, if I take the same $1 million property, bring it over to Hudson, it'll be lower in value, but it's because of the taxes.
Okay.
But that's kind of a good point that you brought up, that they have a robust commercial economy there, but those people are paying higher percentage, right?
It didn't happen overnight, but yeah, it slowly happened. But if it were to be a single tax rate, their tax rate would be in the 16s. I actually looked it up. So
I would take honestly, just an educated guess that for them, if they've got a dramatically separated tax rate, that they probably offer tax incentives and things like that to attract businesses. That, one way that we do it is by having a fixed tax rate. That one option is if, say, a warehouse wants to open in town, they can say, well, your taxes are too high, give us a discount, and they wouldn't do it unless you negotiated a discount, which, boards can do. And that's how some towns, attract new businesses to town, is by saying, all right, we'll give you a certain discount over the next 10 or 20 years on your taxes. And that's something that Northborough has rarely entertained. And, not to say it will never come up, but sometimes it does make some sense to do. But we haven't had to, and, some of the big tax, I don't think we don't have any TIFs on the books right now, right?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
You see it in cities, and,
Yeah.
and they'll entertain it. Okay, we'll start you with a lower tax rate, and then eventually we'll bring it up. But we have a lower tax rate in general.
Yeah.
Why not keep it that way?
One of the points as well is the city form of government. With the city council, they can vote a TIF. The legislative body can meet bi-weekly, whereas they can approve a TIF on the spot. Whereas the way a town like Northborough and some of our neighbors function as being an open town meeting, it would be up to town meeting to approve a TIF, and that we have one town meeting a year. So there's the timing aspect of it, where to what the chair's point is that TIFs are frequently offered in cities where there's split rates.
I just want to check, Lisa, you've got your hand up. Is that just up from before, or do you have a new question? Okay.
Good question. I know that A. Dewey Pyle was offered that, and that I'm not sure, have they completed their years of being here to be able to bring it up to the regular price, or are they still in that that discounted time? And I know FedEx also was offered that. I was wondering who decides that? Who's the one who?
Well, town meeting has to approve TIFs. I mean, it would come to the select board and then go to town meeting. So I think what Jason has said repeatedly is there aren't any current TIFs on the books. So that if there were any for any of those properties, they've rolled off. They've completed their years of discounts and are now paying the standard rate.
Right, but I think they were, that was being used for the industrial, incentive to come to Northborough and to build in Northborough. So when that was being offered to these companies, would they come and, who would they come and talk to? Would they come and talk to the TA? Would they come and talk to, first they'd go out and talk to the person who was the industrial representative for that? And then they would discuss it, bring that forward, and then it would go to town meeting to affirm it or deny it, correct?
Yeah, that would be the usual process, something like that.
All right.
Okay,
Okay,
Laura
thank you.
has a question?
My gut is to stay right now, to not offer any disruption for our businesses. I like the single tax rate idea. I think I like the idea of Hudson. I think they had their business improvement district, but I think that would be something that we need to have our economic development committee do first to really lay out the groundwork, because I know that Hudson did do some really creative things for their businesses when COVID hit. But I think for right now, my preference is to do more research on it, other than just, shifting the burden. I think there's more to it. And I do appreciate the impact on our residents. So I hope that as a board, we can find other ways to save money on taxes to really help just recognize how challenging this time is for them. But I appreciate the presentation, and I hope we as a board can continue to do more to get a more vibrant downtown with more enthusiastic businesses.
To that point, the towns in Massachusetts that don't have a large commercial or industrial base, the residents pay usually higher taxes, right?
It really depends on
What
the makeup of
the
the town.
town wants to have.
Well, no, the makeup
Yeah.
of the town and your individual assessment. So it really depends.
Yeah, I used to live in a town that was, if I remember right, 96-4 was the residential to commercial split. So obviously, everything was on the residential. That town was doing everything it could to attract new commercial, and it just, geographically, it didn't have a lot going for it to do that. It's had some success in recent years, but that's a different story.
Well, I have to say, I agree with Laura. Every year I agonize over this, but I think, our job is to look at the whole picture. And it's nice to have the split.
Yeah, and I agree that, to keep it the way that it is makes the most sense. We are nowhere near what I would call commercial or industrial build-out. I look at it as a community where a split tax rate might make sense, would be, you don't have to attract any more businesses. You've got everything you're going to get. And so you don't have to worry about the attractiveness parcel. And, part of it might be that you're in a great area like, the Cape or Nantucket or something like that, where businesses are just dying to get into your town, or you might just have no more commercial and industrial space, and, you don't see that improving. So maybe it would make sense at that point to offset that, and I don't see Northborough getting to, a commercial build-out for decades. So I don't see that as being anywhere on our horizon. So I think it makes sense to keep it the way that it is, and part of it is also to save $1 for a residential taxpayer, that shifts the burden of $3 onto a commercial taxpayer. And that's, I'd love to save money for residential taxpayers, but I don't think that's the way to do it.
I agree.
Thanks. Any other comments, questions? Again, this is a public hearing. If anyone in the audience, either in person or remote, has anything to offer that they have not, feel free to raise your electronic or physical hands. I'd be more than happy to recognize you. Any members, I don't see any hands up. Any members of the board want to offer any comments or questions while we're in the public hearing stage? Okay, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing with the Board of Assessors.
I move the board vote to close the public hearing with the Board of Assessors.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Laura, seconded by Julianne. Roll call vote, Laura?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. Public hearing is closed. Is there a motion or any other discussion on setting the rate?
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote on a residential factor of 1 and the continued use of a uniform tax rate for all classes of property, to oppose the implementation of a residential exemption, and to oppose the implementation of a small commercial exemption.
Second.
Motion made by Mike, seconded by Julianne. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Mike?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Was that an aye, Lisa? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Was that an aye?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. We have our split. Lee, thank you very,
Thank
very much.
you.
Your presentations are always extremely informative. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Boy, we have a special guest
Oh my gosh.
at the back of the room, which we will move on to. Police Chief Brian Griff, an introduction of Comfort Dog
Do you need
Marshall.
help holding the comfort dog? Oh, yes.
So cute. Yes, let her hold him, then I'm next to her.
We're going to have a little bit of silliness. In
All right, well, and we're going to be brief, because Marshall had the zoomies just a little bit ago.
Oh,
Really?
okay.
Still a puppy, so.
Look at the paws.
I know, how could you resist?
So we go from taxes to comfort dogs.
I know,
We can
see?
talk about the dog after the tax discussion.
Good thing we went first.
I love you. Oh, I love you.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
There's the part coming up again.
Oh, look at you.
Looks like a brown.
There.
Lisa, you got a virtual hand there?
Yeah, very good.
My goodness.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
That way I can get to see him and hold him for a second.
Loves it.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Here, do we get a picture?
We can do that.
Okay.
So thank you very much for having me tonight. I'm here for two requests. Well,
Yep.
sort of a request. The first, as I said about a month ago, when we knew we were getting the dog, and with the support through the ARPA funds, we were able to get our dog a month ago. I'm going to have Steve talk about the dog in a minute. So tonight is two requests. One is to formally appoint Marshall, our chocolate lab, to the Northborough Police Department. And second, I would like to make an additional request to the Select Board to consider voting to establish a dedicated gift fund for the police department. This fund would allow us to consolidate monetary donations and accept tangible property, enabling us to support and expand our Comfort Dog program, which aims to provide comfort and assistance to the community members in times of need. This is, I spoke to Jason a little about this, and he suggested we do this. We've learned from other police departments that do have a Comfort Dog or a canine program that this is a smart thing to do because, believe it or not, people do want to give us gifts for the dog, and we just want to make sure we're doing it right. So with that, without Mr. Chair, through you, do you want to do the appointment first, or have Steve talk about the dog for a few minutes?
Why don't we interview
Okay.
Interview Marshall to make sure he's suitable for an appointment. I will assume that Steve, you'll be the
Hope he
translator.
passes the background check.
Gosh.
I mean, so far it's been great. It's been a little tough, obviously, but for the most part, amazing. He came from Boonfield Labradors in Ringe, New Hampshire. They have bred over, I think, 400 Comfort Dogs specifically. And we have talked to Lunenburg Police Department Officer Brad McNamara, who helped communicate back and forth with going through them. So once we got Marshall visited at week 4, they kind of, I think, take notes, and then week 6 for orientation, we go back when he's 6 weeks old, is what I mean. And then I think they take more notes and they see who we pair up with the best. And then by week 7, I'm showing a picture of Marshall, and then week 8 is when we got the dog on November 1st. Since then, I've been bringing him around. He sleeps a lot, so been bringing him around to the community, to different departments. We've seen DBW in passing, brought him up here to the 3rd floor think last week. He had a short visit. There you go.
Well, thank you for your comments.
Tell us how you really feel, Marshall.
And we went to the library as well as the senior center at the last week as well. And today we went to the fire department again, and we went to. Oh, he wants to say something. We went to the fire department and as well as. Blanking on where he was.
The high school football game.
I heard about the high school
Can't come
football.
into the school yet. The district policy has to be certified, so that can take some time. But I'm going to events out and about and around the schools as well, and hopefully he'll be at the. Well, he will be at the Z school for the outside for the turkey trot coming up on Thanksgiving morning, and yeah, it's going great.
Yeah, he's
Going
been
well.
doing great, even just within the department, it's been great. Really, it's amazing what a dog can do. When you see large men on the floor, it's kind of cute. And the naming the dog was fun too, where we involved the school kids. So the third graders in every school had a vote, and it was right before the presidential vote, so we kind of worked that in there nicely too. A little teaching moment where Marshall was one of 5 names that they could choose from, and Marshall came out on top. So pleased to introduce him. He's not going to be small for long. We expect him to be a very large lab, probably upwards of about 85 pounds.
Oh my gosh, you are
or 90,
so
so
cute.
Mr. Chair, I'll turn it over to you for the appointment because his time is
All right.
short.
I assume no one has any urgent questions for Marshall
I
because
have a quick question. What's the most difficult thing he's going to have to learn? Does
He's
he have
going
to
to have to learn.
recognize behaviors?
Yes, he will. We're doing our training through Animal Assisted Therapy Services. Her name's Kim. She used to be a dispatcher in Worcester, through Worcester, and now she's a comfort dog trainer. So we're doing our services, our training through her, and that starts relatively soon. And it's about 25 weeks total. For the full training, and for him to be certified will be between 8 and 12 months old. And I mean, I've heard stories of comfort dogs going to crisis debriefings and diffusings where there's a room full of first responders or victims and people who are affected, where they are talking about and getting off their chest their perception of what happened. And I've heard of stories where they just walk in and release comfort dogs, and they go to the one that needs it the most right then and there, and they can seek out who needs that comfort the most. And it's amazing what dogs can do. Walking in the room, all eyes and are in shock that, hey, there's a dog. So it's just a beautiful thing, a beautiful creature. So,
Lisa, you've got a hand up?
I have a hand up. I want to know if he's going to be trained to hold a hand and paw. He brings out, give me your hand, because the little potty. Oh, look at that.
yeah, he does know sit. So we're working on a paw and all those other tricks. So, yeah.
Laura?
I just want to say thank you so much for engaging so much of the community to get him out there. I know the students that I've been talking to are really excited to see him. There's a big lineup ready for the turkey trot.
Oh, yeah.
So plan some extra time around that, and I'm really looking forward to what Marshall is going to mean for our community. I'm so happy you're here.
All right. Hearing no objections, is there a
yes,
motion for
sorry.
appointing? And
Thank
I will
you.
say that this job title is courtesy of my daughter Ariella.
Oh.
I confirmed it with the chief that it's appropriate.
Awesome.
I love it.
Mr. Chair, I move to appoint Marshall the dog as Sergeant of Snuggles for the Northborough Police Department, effective immediately.
Second.
I hear seconds from everybody. Motion by Laura, second by
He already got promoted to a sergeant.
Bash to a goal, eh?
All right. Any other questions on the vote? All those in favor, Laura?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Mike?
Hi.
Lisa?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is very much unanimously in favor. Congratulations, Marshall. Welcome to the town of Northborough. Would we have a moment to all pose for a photo? Would that
Oh,
be
wait,
all right?
but I've got one more motion to make.
Yeah, let's work with the chief on that
Oh.
after the motion, if that's all right.
Yeah,
Well,
that's fine.
Yeah. Sure, let's do it. I think we've already talked about it.
Oh, okay,
As
sorry.
long as we're okay, yeah.
Thank you.
I just know that somebody's got something that's going to need this approval.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to approve a gift fund for the police department to consolidate monetary donations and acceptable tangible property to support the Police Comfort Dog program, and authorize the police chief to expend such funds and use such property pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A and 53A and a half.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Laura, seconded by Julianne. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Laura, Julianne?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
I also vote aye. That is unanimous in favor. Thank you very much, and members of the community who want to donate, I imagine we can do that through the
Go
town
through the-
website, or?
Yeah, exactly. We'll
Yeah.
set something up on the website.
Great. So where do we want to stand for our picture?
Wherever is convenient.
Why don't we?
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, go over there. And who wants to volunteer to take a picture?
I'll take a picture.
Okay.
Thank you. Amelia, do you want to get things?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Awesome. You want to break it up?
There's some treats too.
Oh, thank you.
All right, I don't know if you want to do it where Lisa can.
Yeah, they.
Oh, yeah, let's,
That'd be great.
yeah, let's, everybody come in here?
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Job has some.
All right.
Di, how can you sit up here? So cute. Say cheese. No, that way.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Now back to regular business. Thanks, Amelia. I appreciate it.
Oh, can you stand? I'm obsessed. Can you stand it? Do you have a dog? I used to.
Folks at home, we're very sorry you missed that exciting moment.
The smell. Oh my God, I'm obsessed.
Poor Bill has to follow Marshall.
Yeah, that is a tough act. I'm so lucky.
All right. Next up,
Oh, that was fun.
we have Bill Pierce, Chair, Traffic Safety Committee, and Scott Charpentier from DPW.
Where's your puppy?
We have to follow that.
Bill's cute.
Maybe we can get DPW a cat.
Yes.
Bill, a front end loader, please.
All right. So I know we're here to talk about a few items. Why don't you just go ahead and let us know?
So, for those of anyone that may not know, about a year ago, the Traffic Safety Committee was formed. I was voted as chairman. Scott here has helped us greatly with understanding some of the nuances of the town and what we need to look at. So I don't think you want me to go through everything we've done in the past year.
We've got an extensive memo in our packet.
Yeah,
We don't need to
there
do
is a
that.
large memo in the packet. I know that there were a couple items that you didn't, was mentioned that the board wanted to go over. Do we want to just go over those items
Sure,
for now?
yeah. You
Okay.
do that, and then members of the board may ask questions on other items.
Just go back here to the agenda so I can. The Lyman Street no parking zone, I believe, we did approve that, and there was an issue, I believe, with getting the sign.
Yep. So, thank you, Bill. We did, Traffic Safety Committee did vote to recommend to the Select Board a no parking zone on Lyman Street from Bartlett Street to Ridge Road on the inbound, the southbound side. So basically between the Stones property and just past Watson Park. The concern that was expressed by the resident was tractor, not trailers, just the tractors parking. There used to be a little hot dog stand, they went to a sausage guy, and then Jolly Rogers. That little dirt area there, I guess tractors have been pulling over there and resting. So they had a concern with that, the idling diesels and, miscellaneous unknown vehicles parking there. So we brought it to the Traffic Safety Committee's meeting on the 13th. They voted unanimously in favor to recommend the board enact a no parking zone in that area. There's a memo in your packet stating such.
Yes, we see that. Any questions from the board on
I have a
this item?
question. So this is a problem that comes up every now and then. The truck drivers need to rest.
Right.
So are we addressing the larger problem? Is the state addressing that?
So we did look at this, a couple other areas. So in this particular case, there was already no parking allowed. So it was easy for us to put up a sign because the law was already there. I do know that earlier, there was a request that came in about Stirrup Brook, and about tractors parking there. Unfortunately, there is no rule there that allows us to be able to just put up a sign. So that would have to be enacted. And the issue was, because it's a residential area, we were concerned that putting up no parking signs, and then if somebody has a party, all of a sudden you can't park anywhere for that family party. So for something like Thanksgiving or Christmas, you get two neighbors that might not like each other, and all of a sudden you've got the police called. So we wanted to stay away from
I have issues with that situation that we'll talk about later, but,
Wild parties.
what? I'm not gonna be invited.
So that's why we didn't recommend that particular one.
And are we gonna be able to discuss that? Because, I think there's ways around that. Resident parking only, if you're having a big thing, you just let the police know. You have to weigh trucks parking on your street and, that situation against the minor inconvenience of.
Well, yeah, and I kind of wonder does it end up kind of being a game of whack-a-mole where we're chasing them off of this street, but now they're just going to kind of fan out and find somewhere else in town to park? Is there anything town-wide that you can do for like a tractor trailer, truck level, heavy vehicle parking exclusion, or?
No, we had discussed that, and the problem is you can identify them as commercial vehicles, but then you're taking into account like a painter's van.
Right.
Right.
And you can't
There's
parse
no
it,
real
yeah.
designation. One of the things I wanted to look at, but it doesn't really make sense, is a heavy vehicle exclusion. But that would require a study of the street, and that would require a certain number of vehicles to go down the street in order to qualify. And I don't think we would get that number of vehicles down the street, which would be the problem. So we would do this study just to find out that there aren't enough vehicles going down the street to apply for a heavy vehicle
So
exclusion.
you can, Lisa, I see your hand up, we'll get to you in a second. You can say no parking for commercial vehicles. Could you say no parking for vehicles over 30 feet long or over a certain tonnage? Are those options?
Mr. Chairman, so we did discuss that at the meeting when Stirrup Brook and Jenkins was brought up about no parking zone. And the indication from our police department liaison was that no parking is no parking. You cannot segregate whether it's no parking for, vans, trucks, convertibles, Chevys, heavy commercial vehicles. It's one for all for none. And there are some resident-only no parking signs that people may see on the Hemlock, the other side, and then, and those were put up when the Algonquin addition was being constructed. There was a lot of people just parking there, they weren't supposed to, so the signs were put up. They're not enforceable from what I've been told. And what Bill said is actually absolutely correct. You put a no parking zone in the residential area and you end up with neighbors complaining about parking, and then everybody gets tickets and you really can't choose one way or another. So the discussion at the meeting, at the Traffic Safety Committee meeting, was that if a resident sees a tractor trailer parking in their area and they're concerned, it seems to be inappropriate, call the police department. They're happy to come out and have a conversation with the driver. Most of them are willing to move along. They understand they have homes and families as well. So that's the way it was left at the meeting.
Thanks.
But technically, they could stay there because there's no sign.
Correct.
Chief, come on up.
Is this mic okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mediocre mic, but yeah.
Technically, they could stay there. Yes, that is true. In the meetings that I've attended, it's really not appropriate for a tractor-trailer truck to be parked on a street like some of the ones that we've mentioned. They really have no business being there, but legally, they are allowed there. Generally, and as Scott just said, you know, if the resident just called the station, we're going to have a nice conversation and politely ask them to leave, or suggest some other areas, nearby areas where they could actually go and park, and it's better situated for them. But technically, you're right, they could technically stay there. So.
And I will say the other thing we did discuss is resident parking. The problem comes into who's a resident and who's not, right? Who's going to enforce, who's going to keep that list, who's going to maintain that list, and so on. So, you know, we thought that might be too much of a burden for an administrative purpose.
Okay. Lisa, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, a couple questions. The restriction is starting at Lyman to Ridge. Is it only on one side of the street or both sides of the street?
We're only discussing one side of the street. The
Southbound.
the southbound side, correct, thank you. I'm putting the map in my head.
Luckily, it says it in our motion.
Oh, good.
I should have read.
Because you've got to stop and cars back up on the other side. Is there room for people to park and then getting around them without a problem in that size vehicle?
There really isn't any pull-off areas on the other side of Lyman Street. There's commercial parking lots there, but there's a pretty steep grade as you approach Ridge Road, which is approaching the railroad. And the adjacent commercial buildings, they're pretty well vegetated along the frontage. It's the larger, somewhat vacant areas where the vendor used to be. We've seen them parking down at Watson Park. There's a little bit of grass between Watson Park and the Lyman Street well that would be open and available for parking. So it's an area that is attractive, I think, to the tractor-trailer drivers.
Right, well, that was what I was thinking, is Watson Park, and then where this pullover was, there is you can go in the back, like, it looks like there's a dirt road that goes into, I don't know how much area, but they could park in there, they wouldn't be on the street. So how would you prevent or how would you approach the no parking if it's just on Lyman Street? Like, can you go into Watson Park, and can you go into this little section that is available to them?
Well, that section would be private property, and that is owned by the resident who brought this to our attention. Pretty confident that he or she would be certainly willing to make a phone call to the police department in the event tractor trailers do that. Watson Park, they are allowed to park down there. There really is no way to prevent them from parking down there. We have seen them down there. Our staff works every Saturday and Sunday and checks on the well. And they have reached out to me and PD to say, hey, we have a tractor trailer down here. Can you, just the tractor, tractor trailers don't fit down there. Just the tractor, and just ask them to kindly move along. And PD is very responsive, and most of the drivers are as well.
All right, because I know there was an incident down there with something that somebody was walking, and one of the driver of one of these cabs acted inappropriately.
Yep.
Do you have overnight parking there, or can that be, no parking after sunset or whatever? Is that a possibility?
Chief has his hand up.
Through the chair, the parks in town are sunset to sunrise, so that gives us a little leverage on our end to do something a little bit more about it. Typically, we haven't seen the tractor trailers at Watson Park. Occasionally, they do. I think when some of the businesses along Bartlett Street first started popping up, we were seeing a lot more of it. I do think the signage that is up there now along Bartlett Street, our officers are constantly patrolling that area. We're going to have the rogue truck, and that's going to happen. I wish it wouldn't, but I think it's still just going to happen no matter how many signs we have up there. And to Mike's point, I think about the whack-a-mole. I think that's a good analogy, because if we close off all these streets, they're going to pop up on another street. So I think we're doing our best. The signage is helping. I would support this no parking area because just because of where it is a little bit of a cutout. It does almost invite the truck to park there, so I would be supportive of that. But the parks, Lisa, to your point, are sunset to sunrise.
And are they signed that way? Do people know that when they go in?
I know at least Ellsworth Park has the signage. I'm almost certain Watson Park does. I'm not 100% certain.
I'll take a look at that and confirm. If not, we'll certainly.
I know most of the parks do have it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I'm certainly in support of it. I'm not questioning it at all. I'm just trying to find out, a little bit more about the area. And both of those spaces are convenient, because you're off the road. So, but, okay, I'm all done.
Thanks, Lisa. Question, so there was at one point, I know, the food truck that was there, and that's probably been 3-4 years since the last time they were there. Was that done with the cooperation of the property owner?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. And it's the same property owner that's requesting?
Correct.
Okay. Because what I was thinking of is, gee, what happens if they want to have another food truck there, but the property owner is saying, no, they don't want to have a truck there? So that ends that possibility, but it's with the knowledge of the property owner.
Probably beneficial to the food truck person, because then you can get in there and not have trucks parked on the side of the road.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion on the no parking zone?
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to implement a no parking zone for Lyman Street, southbound between Bartlett Street and Ridge Road, as recommended by the Traffic Safety Feasibility Committee.
Second.
A motion made by Julianne, I'll give the second to Mike. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor, Julianne?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. Okay, so we've got that one.
Okay.
Keep going.
Thank you. Sure. So the next one is something that I actually brought up. So when I would bring my kid to soccer practice out in Bedford, which is a little bit of a haul, but I would always notice these signs that would say 25-mile-an-hour speed zone unless otherwise noted. And when I brought it up to the DPW director and the police chief, they noted that it was a fairly new state law that towns could enact that would allow them to be able to reduce the default speed zone in thickly settled residential areas from 30 miles an hour to 25 if it was not posted. So we started discussing this. While we were in the middle of our discussions, Worcester actually put out a survey checking on their residents to see if they were interested in it, and then have since implemented it. So that is now law within the borders of Worcester, as well as many other communities around town. So we thought we would maybe request just a survey of the town to see if they were interested in reducing that speed limit. Now, again, this is for unposted streets. We don't know how many of those there are currently, but it would be, if a street right now is posted at 30, it would stay at 30.
So the process is, the suggested process is that we go out and have a public survey. That's what this memorandum outlines. 3 suggested questions, trying to keep it simple and keep it short, get the citizens' input. In the event it's found positively, then we would come back to the Traffic Safety Committee. They would make a consideration. If they choose to, make a recommendation to this board. The next action is at town meeting to adopt the state law so that we can then enact the speed limit reduction. Some communities, like Sudbury, enacted it relatively recently, townwide, everywhere. Other communities, like Harvard, enacted it per street. So it's, a pick meal here and there. One thing that would be beneficial before, in the event town meeting accepts it, is for Public Works to get a signed inventory throughout the town. In order to know what speed limits we have where. I'd like to know what signs we have where.
Laura?
I really like this idea, and I like the idea. I think it would make it a lot safer for people that our pedestrians and cyclists on the street, just have that, I mean, 20 miles an hour feels very fast. So just even cutting it down from 30, I think is a great idea. And I like the idea of it being town-wide because our high-traffic streets are some of the scariest to be on. And with so few sidewalks, we've got a lot of young kids using those streets, and I just think it would give everybody a safer experience on the roads. So, thank you.
But just to be clear, the 25 miles an hour, would that affect Main Street?
No, this would be in thickly settled areas, town-owned roads only.
And it
So-
would only be on unposted roads.
Correct.
So if there is a
unposted
speed
road.
limit posted, then that overrides the 25.
And define thickly settled?
Pretty much any residential area.
Is thickly settled, really?
Yeah, yeah. If you have residential uses for, I believe it's over an eighth of a mile contiguous, it would be a thickly settled zone. So if you look at Northgate, pretty much all of Northgate is unposted, so it's 30 miles an hour until you drive down Northgate, and then it's 25 on Northgate, right? Posted 25? Yeah, so Northgate's posted 25, it has a double yellow center line, but if you turn off on a Ruth, you can ramp it up to 30 miles an hour legally. Not too logical in my eyes, but this makes it like to Laura's point, this makes it very easy, townwide.
I would just love it if it was all streets, but if it's just those ones for right now, then I'm okay with that, but.
You had mentioned wanting to do an inventory of the roads and things like that. What would it take to get that done?
So we reevaluate the roadways every other year as part of our pavement management program. While the consultant is going out there, literally driving up and down every single road, we have them gather one more piece of data. We've collected sidewalk materials, curb material and condition, sidewalk materials as well, guardrail locations and conditions, pavement markings. I would like to capture signs on the next drive around. It's expensive, and there's different tiers to go. You can just get an inventory of what you have and where it is. You can go all the way up to, does it meet the reflective requirements of the MUTCD? The latter, I really don't want to spend money on. The former, I think it's a valuable database for us to have.
Yeah.
So I would, in the event town meeting approves it and the select board supports it, I would have our consultant do a townwide sign inventory.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
How soon could the survey go out?
I would have to figure out the technology, and, where we're going to put it. But, we have the 3 questions now. If, I don't know if there are any other questions that the board might want to entertain, but those were the 3 that we were able to come up with.
I would think between the holidays at the latest, try to get it done early December, so, and get a good month's worth of input, maybe second week of January.
Yeah, I think it would be good to, to have the answer well in advance of town meeting, so you'd have time to talk about the results, and then we could determine if we want to place a question on the warrant. We have a couple of departments in town that I can think of that have had very good success with surveys recently. I know the library has done a couple, and the senior center recently ran one for WRTA usage. So, I would reach out to them and see how they did that, and I'm sure staff can find good ways of putting it together and distributing and marketing the survey and things like that.
I'll work with Lori as well. I know she did a few surveys
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah,
the
definitely.
Master plan downtown and stuff, yeah.
I think these questions are great, too.
Yeah, my only thought is,
You
first
want-
first
Do you see
question.
changes? Oh, sorry.
I mean, the first one says, is speeding an issue in the town of Northborough? Do we want to focus it on the dense areas, in residential areas? Is speeding an issue in residential areas in the town of Northborough? Because someone may think of, people go too fast on Route 20. Might be an interesting data point, but it's unrelated to options before us.
I think when we took these from Worcester, and I think what Worcester was trying to do was trying to determine how many people thought speeding was an issue, and then how many of them thought that the 25 mile an hour speed limit would fix the issue.
Okay.
Right, and look at that data point as a difference. I know there are a lot of people that actually don't think that the 25 mile an hour speed limit fixes anything, because it's more of an enforcement issue, right? If you're not enforcing 30, how can you enforce 25, right?
So if more people say, I don't believe that that 25 miles an hour is going to fix the safety issue. But we have, I'm sure there's statistics for the police that it does. Are you going to go by what the residents say or by science?
Well, it's about their perception, right? And that's what we want to gather, is what is their perception of what's going on in town, rather than, the actual data of how many speeding tickets we're issuing, the police department is issuing.
But how will you use their perception?
Because people can have a perception that somebody's speeding, even though they may only be going the speed limit. Right? So they wouldn't get a ticket, but they could be, they're not speeding technically, but people think that speed limit is too fast for that street.
My recommendation to the Traffic Safety Committee would be to utilize both data sets. Capture the survey, and if it's decisive, that's easy. If it's, somewhere in the middle, people have concerns with speeding, but they don't think 30 to 25 is going to have any benefit. What you're referring to, a study that shows that 25 does have a benefit, would contradict a layperson's opinion. If nobody thinks it's a problem in town, well, that kind of puts it to bed. That kind of puts it to bed, so.
It might also help us gauge, do we do something townwide, or do we focus in on, on certain areas?
Right, yep.
Now, we could always currently designate a specific road as 25, correct? Or no?
I don't think so.
Okay,
No, not without adoption of this law.
okay. So 30 is the lowest that we can set. Okay.
Well, that's not true, because you already said 25.
Yeah, you said that there are, I think on Northgate that it's 25.
We have a lot of signs out there that
Okay,
are just out there, we'll say.
okay. Similar to the, some of the residential parking
We have a lot of
signs.
signs out
Gotcha.
there that just
Okay.
happen to be there.
Okay, good to know.
Honor system signs.
Yes.
New sergeant on
You
that one.
You write the word please underneath. Lisa, you've got your hand up?
Okay, yeah, thank you. A couple of questions. I agree with Mitch when it says is speeding in residential. I think I think you might confuse the question. I mean, it's supposed to be for thickly settled areas, or perhaps saying for thickly settled areas. Because if you, even though we're going to do it town-wide, that's because of the streets in the town that are thickly settled. But as you say, if you're going down 20 or you're going down South Street, and maybe South Street's considered thickly settled, I don't know. But it just seems to me that you want to kind of narrow it a little bit so people understand why we're doing this, unless you're already putting up a paragraph of what's compelling this questionnaire.
Yeah, so actually,
The question that's, the survey is for such and such,
right.
then you've already.
I would say the third question that's on there does specifically call out thickly settled.
Right.
And there
So
would
there's
there would be an introductory paragraph to the survey indicating why we're doing this, what the goals, what the options are. I would certainly expect to put that in.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I defer to the Traffic Safety Committee to determine the answers that they want and ask those questions.
Well, I mean, I do think too that it would almost sound better, do you think lowering the speed limit? Instead of asking, would it? Because that's a question that, how can anybody answer?
Yeah, I think there are probably some verbiage changes that are worth taking a look at, even if you're not changing the actual question.
Right.
Same with number 1. Do you think speeding
Okay.
is a...
Yeah, and then the responses strongly agree doesn't really match up with the verbiage of that question. So I get where you're getting, I think anyone could understand what you're getting at.
Right.
But keep it so that if someone was reading that as a full sentence, it would make some sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Are folks supportive
Yes.
of doing the survey? Are we okay deferring the language of the survey to the Traffic Safety Committee, or do we want to mandate any specific changes or add any additional questions?
In the paragraph before people answer the questions, are you going to say what your intention is to get this survey? It's so that people know it's we just want your opinion.
Right.
And we will then consider the statistics and your perception of how things are in Northborough, or?
Yeah, we can definitely add that in there.
Yeah, I think having people know what the path is, that this is for the Traffic Safety Committee, and the results of that would be shared with the Select Board and may go to town meeting in April.
Right.
Something like that for consideration of adoption of a law that would allow us to reduce the thick.
And bringing up some of the other towns that have already adopted
Yeah.
it
Yep.
around us.
Mhm.
Yep.
Good. Good. Lisa, you've got your hand up. Is that again? Yeah.
Again, I would actually like to see it before it goes out for the board. Because we may find that we may want to ask another question, or we may find that there's another way to put it, but I think that would be wouldn't be very long, wouldn't take us very long, but I think I would like to do that.
I think I might too.
I think we've gave pretty good constructive feedback. I mean, I'd be comfortable deferring to traffic safety. They've done a lot of other work.
I'm happy to, write something up in like a Word document. Here's what it would look like, on the webpage, and then, send it out to the board.
So I think if we are taking it back, it would, what I'm interpreting, Lisa, is it would come back to the board for board approval of sending out that survey, or are you just looking for, Bill could send it to individual members of the board, and anybody could just send Bill some comments and feedback? Which are you suggesting?
Well, on the second one, if you do it individually, how is that with open meeting law?
Well, what we would be saying in that case is we are deferring to the Traffic Safety Committee, but asking for input from certain people and groups, and that's the Traffic Safety Committee, obviously Scott and Chief Griffin, and anybody else. I'm sure Steph and or Di would weigh in, and just, it would not be something that the board would have to vote on. So therefore, we wouldn't be discussing it amongst ourselves. It would be, hey, Bill's sending it out to a bunch of people. Let me know if you have any comments or questions, but Bill and the Traffic Safety Committee would have final authority on it. The first is the Select Board would have final authority on it.
Similar to minutes, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
right? You send out minutes to each one of the board members, please provide your comments directly to me, do not copy the entire board,
Yeah.
and that's the
Yeah.
process, so I'm happy to do that.
Yeah,
I would like for us to vote on it at the next meeting or whenever this is possible, because if Laura has a great point, I don't know what it is until we discuss it at a meeting, so.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, this is why we hired them, because we, pay, of course, big money, to do this sort of work. So I personally, I'm fine deferring. Laura, your thoughts?
If it would make the rest of the board more comfortable to have another vote, I would just rather defer it. But I appreciate all that you guys are doing.
Yep.
If you're okay with that, that would be my preference.
Yeah, it's fine with me. I mean, like Scott said, the sooner we can get it out there and
Yeah.
get it ready before town meeting, the better off we're gonna be.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, all right, so I think I'm seeing consensus of the board to have traffic safety deal with it, and just, send a final draft out to people that might be interested in providing your board feedback.
No, I thought we were going to vote on it.
Oh, okay, that is what
Sorry.
you wanted?
Yes.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I thought we're going to bring it back once
Okay.
it's finally written.
Okay,
and
so
written.
in which case I see consensus.
Sorry.
The other way.
I
Sorry
will
for the
get
confusion.
a final version sent, and I will
Okay.
send it out to the board for your next meeting. When's your next meeting?
I think it's the 2nd of December.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yep.
great, thank you. All right, in which case we will not, my suggestion is not vote on issuing the survey. And we'll just take that next time. And
thank you.
as part of that, approve the survey.
Final survey questions.
Yeah, so it would be
and
probably a
format.
motion to approve a survey rather than issue a survey. Okay, sound reasonable?
Yep.
All right, what else you got on your plate, Bill?
So we, one of the things we look at is heavy commercial vehicle exclusions. And even though in Scott's budget, he only has enough money to be able to do one per year, what we did is we actually looked back a few years based on some resident suggestions and other things. So there are actually 3 that we looked at this year. One of them is being worked on now, which is the Lincoln Street. But two of the other ones that we looked at and actually didn't recommend both of them coming forward was Rice Ave and Summer Street. I know last time we talked about Summer Street, I'm happy to discuss that one again. The board did not vote to recommend a heavy vehicle exclusion on Summer Street because that would force vehicles to have to come out of South Street onto Route 20, and if they have to make a right-hand turn, they cannot do that without impeding traffic by either moving to the left lane, which is not allowed to make a right-hand turn, or cutting across and cutting off the lane, the left-hand turn lane coming off of Route 20 onto South Street. And so for those reasons, the board thought that a heavy commercial vehicle exclusion on Summer Street would not be in the better interest of the town.
So in the packet, we included the Summer Street Heavy Commercial Vehicle Engineering Study in Appendix A on Figure 5 on the bottom. It's the two that show an aerial image of the intersection of South Street and Main Street. You'll see on the bottom, it's SR, stands for State Route 135 northbound to US Route 20, eastbound right turn lane. You'll see the wheel tracking lines. That's what the two lines are. You see doing an arc to the right, to the east. So the tractor trailer comes up in the right lane on 135 South Street northbound. In order for them to take a right, they go into the left lane that turns left and takes both eastbound lanes on Route 20 in order to make the turn. The tractor trailer coming in the other direction, because they can't go on Summer Street, the top image shows that in the left turn lane, they take over both the southbound lane as well as the northbound lane for 135. So essentially a tractor trailer chews up 4 lanes, making both turning movements. Another concern that was expressed at the Traffic Safety Committee about this truck exclusion was either GPS or tractor trailer drivers learning the different routes and ending up on Brigham Street. As you're coming up 135, if you're not going to take a right on Summer, you want to get to Route 20 eastbound, well, you take Brigham. And Brigham Street is tight, narrow. It's no place I would want to be driving a large vehicle.
I can certainly see why residents of Summer Street would want a truck exclusion.
Absolutely.
It's not a great road for trucks, so we're kind of choosing between two poor options. I think that's probably the way you looked at it.
It really was. We understand that, why the resident was requesting that. But, we felt like, for the greater good of the town, especially because Route 20 and 135 is probably the main intersection in town.
Yeah.
And having a truck try to make a right-hand turn in the middle of rush hour, either in the afternoon or in the morning, would not be ideal.
Lisa, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, I think I'd like a further discussion on this. I think there's a lot more to ask about, but I have to be honest, it's already 8:50, and we've got quite an agenda still to discuss. Is there some way we could put this until next week?
We can certainly have this discussion at a future meeting.
I got a feeling we'll both be here on the 2nd.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Yeah, for the survey follow-up. So let's think about any data that we might want to do. Have you done the survey, or do you have an instinct as to whether the percentage of truck traffic on Summer Street would qualify it for?
It absolutely
inclusion?
does.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, it does.
Yep, yep.
That's what I figured. Have we done the survey, or we would still need to do it anyway?
It's already done.
It's already done, okay.
And the movements are legal. We learned this at the intersection of Bartlett Street and Route 20, when a tractor trailer turns right on from Route 20 eastbound onto Bartlett Street. They have to cross the double yellow center line in order to do so, but that's legal and allowed under Mass General Law. The same occurs here. So it is a legal movement. We're not saying it isn't, it's just very cumbersome, I believe, for the intersection traffic, and I'm happy to come back and if the board chooses to table it.
When we discuss it again, could you weigh in, Chief, on how much of a problem this is, like how many near misses we've had, or?
I can run accident reports.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I can forward that to you in a memo.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Yeah, send it to us and make sure it gets into our packet for the next meeting. Great.
Also, if there are a lot of those turns, so say you're going west on 20, and you're in that left lane where a truck might come in, you know how sometimes it says, stop here on red? Can we move that back so that any trucks would have room?
I'll defer to Scott on that question, because I don't really know if they can do that.
We'd have.
The left turn lane begins 68 feet back from the stop bar. My expectation is that double lane would have to be extended further south in order for the tractor trailer to make it. I mean, these are, 55, the largest are 55-foot trucks, and that's only 68 feet. So you would have to have a clear left, so if you're going northbound on 135, you'd have to have a clear left lane in order for that tractor trailer to make that right. And that clear distance would take up the majority of that 68-foot queue.
And I think the other issue might be that is a MassDOT road, so, we don't necessarily have jurisdiction to be able to make those kind of changes.
Yeah, we don't own the intersection of the lights.
But they did design that whole situation, so maybe they could come up with a better answer
I
too.
mean, it's a legal movement. I mean, the trucks, I'm not saying that this, we would be approving something and forcing an illegal vehicle movement. That's not the case. It's just what the result would be.
I imagine you have some number of trucks that do that now because they don't know about Summer Street.
Right.
So there's some experience there, and, I don't know if there's any way of estimating, you probably can with the data that you have, of saying, how much would that increase with this kind of a change?
And the trucks heading down Summer to get on 20 to, go towards Marlboro, where are they going? Is there they can go anywhere, I get that, but for a large tractor trailer to be heading in that direction, are they heading Route 20 to get on 495?
5,
And going, okay.
195 south.
All right.
Yeah, the GPS probably will not put them up Church Street, which pushes them further west.
Right.
Is
Yeah,
Summer
they're
Street
going the
even
other way,
wide
isn't it?
enough for,
It is.
Yeah.
yeah?
Yeah, it
I
is.
think, through the chair with,
Could we do this next week or next meeting? Because we're discussing it in further depth.
Sure,
and-
let's get Brian's.
Yeah, I'm
input.
actually out of town, so I won't be here, but I can provide a memo. I think without running those numbers, I don't think the numbers are going to be high as far as accidents go on that road. Not to say about the near misses, as you talked about, which I won't be able to provide those numbers. So don't be surprised if you see a very low number of accidents on Summer Street or the intersections of Summer Street. Again, without seeing it in front of me, I'm just going from experience, but it's maybe the near misses. It is a tight road. It is a tight road, so.
But also, we need the accident report from.
Route 135.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Got it, thank you.
We'll take care of it.
Okay. All right, thanks. Are we okay moving
Yes.
along from this one? And there was another,
The other
truck
heavy
exclusion.
commercial vehicle exclusion was for Rice Ave.
Yeah.
So both the upper and lower Rice Ave locations were done, but Allen Street wasn't. And the concern there is if we did put a heavy vehicle exclusion on Rice Ave and not on that little section of Allen Street by where a truck, if they came up to the aqueduct, right, they're all of a sudden, they can't go straight. If they go to make a right-hand turn, now they're stuck because there's a heavy vehicle exclusion on that street in front of them. And so they would have to back down onto Hudson Street.
okay.
The same conditions exist on Winter Street. So if a truck is coming up Winter Street, they stop there at Whitney, they can't take a left, they can't take a right because of existing truck exclusions, and then they wouldn't go straight. So there are recommendations in the report that in the event of truck exclusion, a heavy commercial vehicle exclusion was authorized for Rice Ave from Whitney to Barefoot, from Whitney to Colburn, Rice Ave, Winter Street and Allen Street, Short Allen. should also be part of that restriction. But again, we can table these if you
Yeah.
choose.
Yeah. Does anyone want to hear more information about the Rice Street item next time?
Yes.
Yes, okay, yeah, Lisa, okay. Lisa, you've got your hand up, was there anything else, or you just wanted to weigh in on
No,
that?
that's exactly what I'd like to see next week, or I'm not,
Next
sorry, next meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, sounds
Mr.
good.
Chairman, is there anything else in the Traffic Safety Committee summary memorandum that you'd like to discuss, or would you want to bring it up again at the next meeting? There was, I didn't number them, but there was a handful of items that we
yeah.
went over.
Yeah, no, that was a good report with all the work done.
You know, if we're gonna have the Traffic Safety Committee at the next meeting, I'd like to go over a few of these other things too.
Okay.
Like Crawford Street, the guardrails. I'm always concerned about Crawford Street and the guardrails, and there were a couple of other things that I had questions on, so can that be however you
Sure,
put it
we
in the
can,
agenda?
we can basically continue this whole item,
Yeah.
other than, I think the Lyman Street no parking zone would not be continued, because we've resolved that, but everything else would be.
Through the chair, may I ask, Julianne, if you could share with me what other items you have specific concern about? Because these are very high-level summaries. There's more data and information behind these, so
Could we
I'd want to be prepared. Or you can,
Perhaps board members that wanted some additional information, get an email to Steph to
Yeah,
forward to
absolutely.
Scott within the next few days, so that Scott can
Perfect.
adequately prepare.
Then he has
for
some
any
That would
other
be
things that people are
fantastic.
interested in.
thank you.
That'd be all right?
Perfect.
Yep, great. Okay,
Hopefully we're not following up with you next time.
I know.
all right, very good. Bill, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Scott, you're remaining with us.
Yes, yes,
Um,
can I get the agenda, please?
Okay, some DPW ARPA requests and updates.
Yes. So we have been, I believe, anxiously awaiting the sidewalk information
Very much so, yeah.
from the ARPA funding, and you have a memorandum in your packet outlining the results. So we had several projects, sidewalk projects. I'll give you a really executive summary. We had Hudson Street, the short section from Center Drive past Unitarian Church toward Main Street, Gale Street and Monroe Street, additional sidewalks, Allen Street, additional sidewalk, South Street, replacing the two existing sidewalks between Main Street and Gale, and then Maple Street, final design, completion of the design services. You've currently funded Maple Street's survey and conceptual design and quantities. So we've got a proposal from our consultant for the Maple Street. We sent the conceptual designs or the preliminary designs and quantities to our paving contractor for the other projects. Hudson Street, the two properties that that the sidewalk would go across, both require easements for the full lengths.
I'm sorry, for which one?
Hudson Street, the
Hudson,
two properties
needs
between
easement.
Center Drive.
Yep.
And the Unitarian Church. One of those residents had contacted me when the surveyors were out there and asked what was going on. I explained to the resident what we're doing, and she said, "My goodness, I already don't have much of a lawn. You know, I'd love to have a sidewalk, but I really don't want to lose my lawn." This would require easements. In the event everybody along the frontage was completely in favor and high-fiving each other about getting a sidewalk, I would suggest maybe a right of entry temporarily with a memorandum of agreement that we will get an easement at a future town meeting.
What does that mean, right of entry?
You as a property owner allows me and my contractor to go on your property. You're relieved of all liabilities associated with somebody working on your property. The memorandum of agreement indicates that once the construction work is complete, you will authorize an easement after town meeting, before town meeting accepts the easement, then town meeting would accept the easement. Right of entries are used on all Mass DOT projects. They're very strict about that. The Gale and Monroe Street, those include asphalt sidewalk on Monroe Street extending up from the commercial property, the old Tony Abu property, to the intersection with Gale, and then new cement concrete sidewalk with granite curbs, with granite curbing down Gale Street. This would be on the north side, so it would be contiguous with the Monroe sidewalk that is on the town common side wrapping around. There are some grading challenges there, so we've included some very short retaining wall work at the back of the sidewalk. It's all within the town right-of-way. There may be an opportunity to grade that out with a slope. We talk to the neighbors, if they're okay with it. Again, right of entry, we get it done. No easements necessary. Regardless, the money is in the estimate for the wall. It also includes conduit and handholds. One of the goals of the Master Plan Implementation Committee, and particularly the downtown revitalization effort, is to have pedestrian scale lighting. That's not designed yet, but we did have an electrical engineer put together the conduit and handhold requirements. What goes in the conduits, that'll be designed at a later point. Where the poles are and foundations are, that's later, but regardless, you need handholds to pull wires, and you need conduits to pull the wires through. So that's included in the project. The total cost for Gale and Monroe Street construction is $253,100. That was provided by a paving contractor. Those values are very similar to what you would see on a Mass DOT average weighted bid form and things like that. Allen Street proved to be much more simple than I had expected, which is good. There was some discrepancies in the prior survey that we received, and they were resolved with our survey. That's why we actually had to wait for Allen Street for quite a while. They did a lot more research out there. We are able to get the sidewalk in without a single easement behind the existing asphalt curb. This is proposed as an asphalt sidewalk. There is one grading issue. If you're coming up Allen Street, right-hand side, there's a driveway and a utility pole with a nice little dry joint masonry wall that wraps partially around the pole. We would just have to extend that wall a little bit, and the contractor would do that. That's in the quote.
And that's to get the sidewalk done? It's
Yes.
82, wow.
Yep, 82.5. No, there's a big difference between granite curb and cement concrete. We've had that conversation over the years.
Yes?
It's clearing my throat.
Yeah. The South Street, that's basically a remove and replace in kind. South Street has granite curbing and cement concrete sidewalk. It would also include the conduits and the handholds, similar to what I described on Monroe and Gale. It will also includes a mill and overlay of South Street from the Route 20 intersection behind the detector loops to Gale Street and through Gale Street. There is no curb reveal there. When you drive, a curb reveal is the asphalt's atop a curb. Standard is 6 inches, 9 inches on a bridge. There's like 2 or 3 inches of curb reveal there. To remove and reset the curb, you can't just raise the sidewalk up. You negatively impact the neighbors. The Leland House, they have a walkway that goes right up to their business stairs. So the new sidewalk will be replaced at the same grade as the existing, but we're going to mill and overlay the roadway, mill the gutters deep, mill the gutters 3 inches, and put an inch back. So we'll gain 2 inches of reveal. It's not perfect. We have about 2 or 3 there. We'll probably end up with about 5, which is certainly better. It feels safer for residents. It's safer for plow operators. They have a curb to ride on. Again, it's electrical handholds and the conduits as laid out by the electrical engineer. That price is $251,200. Same unit prices as Gale and Monroe and our paving contract. The completion of the Maple Street design work, we had discussed this in the event there was 1 or 2 projects, paving sidewalks that you did not want to do, or if there was money at the end for ARPA that just needed to go somewhere. I asked for a proposal to complete the design services and permitting for Maple Street sidewalk. The proposal came in at $73,450. Again, the current scope is to survey the entire property, the entire project limits, features, topo, and property, and put together a preliminary layout with quantities. We could then apply quantities from the current pricing we have to that project, get an idea of where the numbers are for construction. Again, do we do asphalt curb and sidewalk for much less? Do we do granite curb and concrete for much more? Regardless, the design fee for regardless of the material is the same. You still have to do permitting through the wetlands. You still have aqueduct across, there's utility coordinations and the like. So in the event the choice was to go forward with that design, we received a quote for it. All in all, you got a $586,800 construction estimate amongst the three. That's approximately $587,000. And if you include the Maple Street sidewalk, it puts the number up to $660,000.
Which is, I think, more than we have available, 660, yeah. Yeah, we've somewhere around 580.
And would this be the largest, in total, the largest ARPA allocation that the board has done?
Largest was the Proctor Street School, which was 2.2
Right.
million.
Okay.
We got a little bit of it back that we applied towards the Melican basketball.
Right,
courts.
right.
Yeah.
I guess since I've been here, it would be the largest, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if we considered this all together, it would probably be the second largest. Couple of questions, the Hudson Street sidewalk, I know the easement is an issue. Do you have a gut idea as to the cost if we had the permission to do it?
It's probably similar to Allen Street,
Okay.
$70,000 to $80,000.
Okay.
Because it's granite curb,
Yeah.
cement concrete sidewalk. It's probably only 2 handholds and 1 run of conduit, because you can pull 300 to 500 feet in a handhole, so it's not a lot of that, but.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've got an issue that we've got to sort out one way or another with one property. So there are 2 property owners there?
There are 2 property owners
Did you
there,
hear
correct.
from the other one?
I did not. One is a single-family home, the other one is a duplex.
Okay.
I'm happy to, we have the layout, I'm happy to get the quantities and apply the pricing that we have from the other
Yeah.
projects to Allen Street and say, here's what the construction number would be.
For Hudson?
Yeah, I'm sorry, for Hudson Street,
Yeah.
yes, yep.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm downtown a lot, and I see people sometimes walking on the grass, which is not our property, it's the property owner's property, and I see sometimes them walking on the side of the road, because they want to stay on what they view as the sidewalk or pavement, or whatever the case is, and that's dangerous.
Yeah.
So I really see this as something we should find a way to resolve, and, if that, having a good heart-to-heart with the property owners, seeing if there's something that needs to get done to move that along, I think is really important from a public safety standpoint. It's not a cost issue, because of the relatively low cost of that stretch of sidewalk, but it's a big win that you've got right downtown, you've got sidewalk, what is it, 150 feet, and then more sidewalk.
Right.
In a densely populated area with a lot of homes, a lot of businesses. I really think we should, Steph, if you want to get to know some Northborough neighbors, reach out to them.
Oh, that's a great way.
Well, I mean, and figure out, if there's a way that we can do it.
I'll bring Marshall. There you go.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Seriously, Scott, is there something we can offer those homeowners to make this palatable for them?
And that's the discussion to have.
Yeah.
You're allowed to spend mitigation funds on impacts on properties when you're putting infrastructure along their frontage. That's not uncommon.
Oh, okay.
We put arborvitaes in the back of the town common. There's those properties back there that they had recently cleared out their backyard. New owner came in, they got kids, they cleared out the whole backyard. It's a nice tree canopy with a lot of mulch underneath. They don't want their kids running into the town common and vice versa, so we put up the arborvitaes.
Yeah, put in some shrubs behind the sidewalk, something like that.
Yeah, it's a fair approach, and, it's a conversation to have. In the meantime, I'll be happy to get the number from, to apply it. I'll email it to Steph, and she can get it to the board, so you have it, and I can discuss it on the second, for Hudson Street construction.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Lisa, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, I really appreciate all the hard work, Scott, and looking forward to getting some sidewalks put in. Personally, I think that there's still a little bit of money that I wanted to be able to, I've been talking with Chief Griffin about some speed limit signs, and if we spend all the money on sidewalks that's left, then we won't be able to get any of those. And he put some effort into getting prices and locations for those speed limit signs. So I would like to hold off on spending everything we have on sidewalks.
I'm happy to walk South Street and see if there's some corrective measures. I mean, South Street's a remove and replace. You know, it's cement concrete sidewalk, it's granite curb now. Do we need to remove that and replace it in kind? I mean, it will look wonderful, obviously, and I'd rather get some curb reveal there. It's safer. It's $250,000, and that's a lot of money for a remove and replace as opposed to constructing new, because we've all talked about, you know, adding sidewalks, you know, opening up connectivities. That's not what that would do. That will just simply, you know, make it look nice. And if there are tripping hazards, obviously it would address that. And I can look at that and see if there's a few panels that could be replaced by the contractor that addresses that, any tripping hazards, if you'd like.
Yeah, I think it's, now that we have these numbers, we don't have a lot of time to sort out ARPA, as we all know. But I think it's worth a little bit more time to take a look at this and see how we can maximize our bang for the buck. I know that Jason, you know, has emailed us and said he's working on getting information back from the departments that we have previously allocated money to see is there money left over. So the amount of money that we know is available now may increase by some amount. Jason, do you think you might have that answer by our December 2nd meeting, or at least some number there? Or to tell us there's not going to be a dime? That's, you know, there also.
I have no updates.
Okay. No, I wasn't expecting any
no
now.
updates, but I asked all of the departments to let me know. And
Yeah.
I have not heard anything back yet
Okay.
from anyone.
Okay. So
I've spent everything.
And I guess a related question for Jason, if we know that if we allocate money for something and we don't end up using it all, once January 1st hits, that money floats back to Washington DC, which I don't want to do. Do we have a way of crafting motions or something we can do at the end? So two possibilities is maybe something in the motion, like, let's say, for example, just for the Gale Street Monroe one of $253,000, let's say it ends up costing $245,000, that we can put something in there that, you know, the extra few $1,000s that's left can be still used and not thrown away.
Right, I mean, I think there's gonna be some provisions in it. I haven't seen that there's gonna be some last second guidance that comes out, I believe, that's
Okay.
gonna happen, because what they don't want is there to be an incentive to spend money just because it's for the sake of losing it. So one of the cases was if you have a vendor that's non-responsive during the after the obligation period, there's provisions to be able to switch vendors. So you start with an obligation, and I mean the money needs to be obligated by December. That's the rule. We need to pay back anything that's not obligated. But once it is obligated, there's going to be some provisions for how we manage it afterwards.
And then the next question, as far as ways of dealing with those sorts of things, is there an option, and the answer is probably no, of us having a motion at the, you know, our last meeting in December that says, you know, we allocate up to $1 million or $10 million or whatever the number is towards sidewalks, and you know, as a not to exceed, but as a way of, you know, anything left over, that's where it goes.
Right, I mean, I think the motion you would vote would be to up to a certain limit, and then we'd enter into a contract for the amount the exact amount, if it's
Yeah. So it'd be
slightly less than that, or.
But a contract maybe between Steph and the DPW. So
Right,
as a
we have
way
to
of
be ready
carrying
with
it out.
that contract.
Yeah.
So we need to have something tangible in that contract. It can't just be a simple vote of the board, and that's been kind of made clear throughout the guidance that's come out, is that there has to be a contract. It could be between departments. It
Yeah.
could be between the administrator's
Right.
office and the public works.
Yeah.
And like we've talked about that already.
But it could be for sidewalks generally.
Right, to complete sidewalks, yeah. It has to be something tangible
Okay.
in the
And
contract.
can it be an obscenely high amount beyond what we know to be available as a way of capturing?
Well,
anything that might
yeah, I
fall-
mean, I'd
fall between the
recommend you
provisions.
make a vote for like 600,000,
Yeah.
and if it ends up being 587,000, then that's what I would recommend.
Yep.
But we need to be ready with that contract
Okay.
at the end.
Okay, yeah, just thinking about ways of votes that we take in December. Okay, thanks. Sorry, back to questions about the proposed sidewalks, the construction, as well as one design option. Lisa?
Well, actually, I'm going to say, I had yes, but I was also going to recommend that perhaps we should do this for next meeting as well, because you've got three lengthy things you're going to talk about, and it's already 9:16.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines of maybe waiting on decisions on these, not so much for the timing, although we're getting there, but because this exceeds the amount of money that we know we have available in ARPA funds.
Right.
And it is conceivable that there may be other requests that would come up that, we may want to consider at our December 2nd meeting.
Does that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine. It'll give me an opportunity to come up with, for lack of better terms, ballpark on Hudson Street by applying those numbers. And then also, if it pleases the board, I'll go to South Street and I'll walk it and do a panel count on where there may be ADA compliance issues. And if it's 15 concrete panels that get replaced, and instead of spending $250,000, you spend $28,000, that certainly frees up some money.
Yep. And it may be, as we start to wind down, may make sense to have some contracts ready for that, for where you can't get vendor contracts in place. If we approve December 2nd, you'd only have, 3.5 weeks to have that done, is have those intermunicipal agreements ready or intermunicipal agreement ready. And we've got a comment in back, so come on up. You could identify yourself and let us know what's on your mind, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joanne G. Verhoeven. I live at 7 Harris Ave. I have been sending emails and communicating with all of you about Maple Street. I am the one that sent all of the petitions, and I have them here. I have, I think, I don't know, 9 residents that live on Maple that are in support of the sidewalk. My son goes to Peasley, and Emmanuel, who's here tonight, is going to Melican, and we'd like to walk to the high school safely. Every day, my son, who's at Peasley, walks home from school. I go to Peasley to pick him up, and then go down Ridge, and there's no sidewalks from Ridge to the rest of Maple. And you need to know how dangerous that intersection is. That Maple Street connects both Peasley and the high school, and then Ridge. And in the afternoons and in the mornings, that corner of Northborough is highly traveled, with people cutting through to 20, to downtown, to 495, all different directions. And the road on Maple curves right where Ridge meets, and you can't see, and that's where the sidewalk ends. So it is extremely dangerous. And as you were talking about Hudson, I am the one that's walking either on people's properties, like Kurt's who's here, or on the sidewalk, and I'm eyeing the drivers as they come with my dog, my elementary school kid, and myself, and other elementary school kids that are walking with me. So I really just want to petition you to at least use the ARPA money to get the design done for Maple Street, because at least we can then, I've heard you about the safe school grants and other things. People go very fast on Maple. Because then we can look at other options, and I don't want to be in a situation where we run out of the ARPA money and then we are not able to move forward with other plans for Maple Street. It sounded like from other discussions that Maple is not going to fit into the money that you already have to complete the sidewalk, but I don't want to miss this opportunity and looking at other grants to get. And whereas this street really is not just for my neighborhood, but also for all the residents that utilize the high school, for all the town meetings, the fireworks, everyone's going down Maple Street to cut off. There's parking and things like that. So I would really push you to support the ARPA money to get the design done for Maple.
Thank you. Yeah, I certainly can't speak for the board, but we have talked extensively about Maple Street, the value of getting a sidewalk there, and then the disappointment when we heard that the cost and complexity and time would certainly exceed what we can do with ARPA funds for the construction. Scott, do you have any rough guesses on cost for construction? It's not,
I
it's
don't. It's
too hard to figure out
There's a
yet.
big utility number that's going to be driven by it
Okay.
with the poles. I mean, one benefit of authorizing the design money now is that we will have what a lot of grant entities want is shovel-ready projects, you know. Safe Routes to Schools looks for that, MassWorks, Community One Stop looks for that. It's a nice box to check when you're looking for funding.
Anybody else want to weigh in while we're talking about the Maple Street design?
I'm confused. The amount that you are recommending for Maple Street, 73,000 and change,
Correct.
that is for, to complete the design.
Design and permitting, correct. At the end of that, we will have permits in hand and a shovel-ready project, looking for money to bid. Yep.
Okay, so that's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
And then, how do we make a sidewalk happen there?
Then we find money. I'll have a construction cost estimate, we'll have permits in hand. There's likely going to be easements needed, possible utility relocation coordination. That's all part of the process. So get the design complete, identify the easements. A lot of grant entities require rights to the property before you build it, so then you secure your easements. Generally, the easements are either fair market or no cost. You know, fair market for a sliver of land and along your frontage is not high. Once the easements are in hand and the utilities have committed to doing what they need to do, then it's just a matter of finding money.
What's the timeline roughly for the design process?
I would expect the design and permitting to be done by next fall.
Next fall,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, permitting
So
committees,
no
that's
option of, what I was thinking is, could we get the easements at the Springtown meeting? And the
Yeah,
answer is no.
there would likely be not be time. We'll have the easement needs
Yeah.
by town meeting, but when you back off of the third week of April and
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's tomorrow that
Yeah.
you need it,
Yeah.
so we won't be ready
Yeah,
then.
all right, so we'd be looking for easements either the following, town meeting of 2026.
Yep.
Or a fall town meeting if we had a fall town meeting next year.
Yeah, and if we can get them, I mean, if they're there and the utilities are easy and there's nothing too
Yeah.
complicated, great.
Yeah,
I'm
get them
not
on the
optimistic.
books before we even start the construction if we're,
Right.
because that would probably improve our chances of getting grants.
Exactly.
By having those in the
Correct.
books, okay, good. But it doesn't sound like I think I'm hearing from the board that we want to do this.
Yes,
Absolutely.
definitely.
We can make that decision tonight, and that would simplify the decisions that need to be made for construction in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Do we want to do that?
Yes, please.
Okay. Julie, let's see, Lisa, is there a motion? And, sorry, you've had your hand up. Do you have anything you want to say before this, or is this related?
Well, I totally agree with doing what you're doing right now. I don't know if I can find a motion for that. But I think that if we go ahead with this and the 73,000 to get this information going, I don't want to wait until 2026. I want to be able to get something moving faster. So once this thing's in order, and from what I understand, there may be already people that have agreed to the easements on their property. I'd rather go ahead and at least put this together with Maple Street and get the ball rolling on it. And I think it still leaves us with a considerable amount of money left, but that's my
Yeah, I
opinion
think
on
that's
that.
what we're talking about doing is, this is an easier decision because it's more impactful and a lower amount of money relative to a couple of the construction projects. And obviously highly in demand from the residents.
They've been asking for many, many years.
Yep, agreed.
Okay, unfortunately, where was my motion sheets?
Do you want me to do it?
You want Julianne to do it, Lisa?
Doing
Okay, Lisa, I'll ask Julianne to make the motion.
Yeah, please do that.
Sure.
I move the board vote to approve the use of ARPA funds in the amount of $73,450 for the purpose of sidewalk construction on Maple Street, as presented in the ARPA sidewalk update memo by the DPW director included in the meeting packet, pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, and to authorize the expenditure of such funds by the DPW director.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Julianne, seconded by Laura. Any other discussion on this item? Okay, all those in favor? Julianne?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. we didn't figure out the proportions of this. We have some sidewalk apportionment on there. Do we want to just use the same
Yep.
percentages that we've had
Yep.
in place? Okay. All right.
And I think I've got the most remaining, so.
Yeah.
you wanna-
I think next meeting will just be.
Okay.
We'll sort of be emptying out one way or the other.
Sounds good. Sidewalks, all
Okay,
the way.
okay, great. Thank you very much for your comments and for your efforts in gathering signatures and speaking with neighbors and everything else. Once we're further in the design process, I'm sure we'll be asking you to also help, work with the neighbors in granting the easements, because that will be critical to get this going. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for joining us also. You're on the other side of Scott's head, so I haven't actually seen you yet. And thank you for the young citizen for coming forward. All right, but I think on the construction items, we're going to wait. I think it's important to get some additional options on Hudson Street, as we've discussed. It is possible, I'm hopeful that our December 2nd meeting, we might make final decisions on ARPA and get that down to or very nearly to zero. I would say if anyone has any items that we would like to see funded within ARPA, get them, send Steph and I an email
Okay.
with whatever that happens to, whether it's on the list and we haven't done it yet, or it's something not on the list, so that we can make those decisions, because we're running out of time.
Okay.
And we want to run out of money the good way, not the bad way.
Right.
Okay, so if there's money left over, after the designs and all the things that we vote on, can you start a sidewalk fund or something like that?
Yeah, it can be, as Jason indicated, you make a motion to allocate any remaining ARPA funds up to $250,000 for use by the DPW director in consultation with the board for sidewalk projects.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. If you could do me a favor and work up something formal for that. Sidewalks is a good possibility because of the costs and the number of, but we may have other items also that, could potentially come up between now and then.
We'll probably ask for council's guidance in
Yes.
crafting the contract, but we've used the template that they've provided us
Yeah.
for the most part, which they've weighed in on each one of these allocations that involve the interdepartmental or interagency
Yep.
funding agreements.
Perfect. And then we would have 24 months after the end of December to spend those, and I'm sure you could find some sidewalks to build.
I will do that for you,
between now
Mr.
and then.
Chairman.
Yeah. All right, so that is the sidewalks part of your item. We've got some LED traffic signs and then picnic tables and benches. Do we want to try to work through those quickly?
Yeah, this will be relatively quickly, Mr. Chairman. Resident brought before the Traffic Safety Committee a concern with the horizontal curve on South Street, specifically as you're going southbound toward Westborough. You pass Riley Road on your right-hand side, you go up an incline. As you crest it and come down, there's a horizontal curve in front of you that goes to the left. At the bottom of that curve is Northgate. That curve, the speed reduction to 25 miles an hour at that location. It's a sharp curve. The speed reduction is due to the horizontal geometry of the roadway, sharp curve. We've had residents reach out to us previously about that curve with concern. We've added is redundant, added additional signage. We've added signage there. Right now, there is 2 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs, 4 chevrons, which are the yellow square with the black angle on it, and then 1 sharp curve sign. So the resident requested a lighted sign, motion-activated, solar-powered LED sign, similar to what we have as a speed limit sign on Short Davis when you leave Southwest Cutoff. You leave in town, you're heading toward Shrewsbury, take a right, and there's a little speed limit sign there. The LED lights flash when you drive by. The suggestion was heard by the Traffic Safety Committee. They recommended we come before the board for consideration to purchase a sign. These signs are $3,000 each. One, motion-activated, solar-powered LED traffic signs, $3,000. So my suggestion was to utilize, well, to remove the existing horizontal curve sign. It's a yellow diamond with the arrow, the curved arrow on it. Remove that, put one in that is LED motion activated. Challenge is finding a location. We need to find a location that doesn't adversely impact a neighbor. It's a yellow LED sign, it blinks, LEDs are bright. We certainly don't want to have somebody upset that we put a blinking light in front of their house. But when you try to hide it by vegetation, vegetation has leaves, leaves stop sun, sun doesn't power batteries, so it's a bit of a struggle. So we're going to try to find the best spot. We reached out to one of the neighbors. They were in favor of it. They said we're far enough off the road. I don't think it would be a problem. We really can't be bopping around left to, let's move it 10 feet, move it 20 feet. So we'll do our best to find a good spot in the event the board supports this. But, you know, I know one of the residents has reached out to us on several occasions in the past about this.
Okay, questions or thoughts?
And the concern is just people going too fast on the turn, right?
Yeah.
This is too,
There have
Just-
been, yeah.
yeah, get them to slow down.
Yeah, well, there's a guardrail there. I mean, there's not a lot of crash history there from from discussions we had at the meeting with the chief, but there is a guardrail there, it's a sharp curve. You know, I've seen that guardrail replaced in the past, and we've had to replace signs there, so it's a sharp, dangerous curve.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think there have been I remember there was a pretty dangerous accident there a few years ago, and
yeah.
that area with so many kids.
When accidents happen there, they're real.
Yeah.
They're not often, but unfortunately, they're substantial.
So what will this sign say? You're going too fast, you're going,
No, this is simply a yellow diamond with a black arrow on it, a curved arrow, with yellow LED lights around the perimeter of it. So as you're driving up to it, it sees you, it blinks, whatever, 5 seconds, you're alerted. Within the sign, it could say slow, which a lot of them do. Some say curve. I don't like curve. It's kind of redundant because there's a curve wrapped around the word curve. But regardless, that's what it would be. It will enhance the alerting of the drivers that there's a curve coming, for sure.
Lisa, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I do like the slow. I don't know if slow down, but slow and with a blinking light makes perfect sense.
Yep.
And because I'm the timekeeper tonight,
Yep.
can I move?
Are we ready to
Yes.
vote on this one? Okay.
Yep.
Yep, go ahead.
All right. I'm going to take Julianne's.
Okay.
I move to vote to approve the use of ARPA funds in the amount of $3,000 for the purpose of installing a flashing signal on South Street near the addresses of 194 and 196, as presented in the memo by the Assistant DPW Director, including in the meeting packet pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, and to authorize the expenditure of such funds by the DPW Director.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Lisa, seconded by Laura. I assume, Scott, you have time before the end of the year to enter into a vendor contract for this?
Oh, yeah, I have the quotes, yep.
Yep,
I'll get
perfect.
that, yep.
And do we just want to simply split this 5 ways?
Sure.
Good with that, okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, all those in favor, Lisa? I need to hear it, I didn't hear it.
You're muted.
Aye.
Thank you, Laura.
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Also vote aye, vote is unanimous in favor. 5. Alrighty, and picnic tables and benches.
Yes. So the picnic tables at the town common, I believe, is what we're discussing. I received a quote from our general contractor to install the cement concrete pad. We'll refer to it as the T shape. It's actually going to get a little bit bigger because we have to put we're putting a trash barrel there as well. So there'll be an additional 30-inch by 30-inch pad for the trash barrel. The quote we got was for $9,340 to install the pad and mount the tables. My guess is that the additional concrete will not add that much to the cost. 30 by 30, 200, 4, 6, maybe $500, maybe $800, something to that effect. Still be around the $10,000 number. One of the benefits of the size is the amount of concrete we're moving, that's gonna be moved. It's not a lot of weight, it's about 4,500 pounds. Because it's not that much, and the generosity of the neighbor who owns the old Bank of America, that owner is allowing us to access the town common through those bushes that exist on her property. The arrangement is that we're going to remove the brush, we will not cut any trees down, and she was very accommodating to allow us to do that. If it was much larger, that may not be a feasible approach. They may have to bring a concrete truck in or something else.
And just a reminder to everyone and for the public, the board back a couple months ago approved $25,000 for downtown picnic tables and benches. This fits within that budget, correct?
Yes.
So you're not looking for additional funds, but there were questions that came up about design, about some earlier design, I guess maybe when the park was initially designed or conceptualized, there was a different arrangement for potential picnic tables. Those were pulled off. And, you know, did we want to do something different? And I think what you're talking about is something different. It's something that would be not just more expensive, but more complicated, because of the concrete and everything else. So we wanted some, I don't remember who it was that brought it up of let's discuss it, but let's discuss it. Lisa, I see your hand up.
I know. I wanted to discuss it, but can we discuss it at the next meeting?
Can we wait on that one?
We can. Obviously, we need to get vendor contracts. If there are questions that come up that we don't have the answer for, then we wouldn't be able to make, for example, if somebody wanted to do a different design, we would have to ask Scott now to get those things for us. We don't have to make any decision at
Well,
all.
this is within the original
This
allotted
is within the
funds.
original
What do we
budget.
actually?
I think Lisa had questions and wanted to discuss it as a board. so-
Yes, absolutely, I do. But I mean, again, it's like 9:38 now, and we've got so many others before at 10 o'clock, executive. But I think I'd like to be able to talk about it, and I'm sure that, maybe other board members would like to talk about it. I think it's an important discussion. This is certainly a visual and accommodating, try to make the downtown and the look and the common and all of that. So I really think I'd rather take the time to be able to speak to the questions and the design and everything with a little bit greater easement of speech.
We're making next meeting pretty long, too.
Right, I mean, everything we're punting from tonight.
And we have several items that'll be on
But
that.
we don't have an executive.
Thing is that you've got a legal thing that's coming up at 10 o'clock, and I think that,
And it's, I mean, and I can't guarantee we won't next time. But that's fine. I mean, I don't have a problem, if the board wants to, we can push it off.
Is it stopping Scott from doing something?
No, I mean, as long as it's by the end of the year, I mean, I need to engage the contractor to do the work, and we need to get the materials on order. One thing that would be helpful is if there is a decision next week, because in the event, the current T shape is what's selected, call it $10,000 for that work. There's two small slabs that would go over at the 4 West Main Street. Maybe that's $2,500, $3,000. You're at 13. You throw another 5 or 8 into the materials. You'll still have about $5,000, $7,000 left. That's my just back of the envelope projection. If you find out that you only have $5,000 to $7,000 left, and we're sitting here on Christmas Eve, it may be challenging to just go buy something, and I don't know where to put it. It's easy to buy $7,000 worth of tables. Ooh, if we don't have any place to put them, they're just going to sit in a box for a while. So I would like to have some time to plan things out.
Julianne?
So between now and the next meeting, could you possibly, like with white or orange paint or something, show us where exactly that's going to be? And with stakes, or I don't know what, but I went down there today and I still can't visualize how big it's going to be and how it's going to sit on there.
We could use like chalk.
I can certainly lay out the shape, we're using letters, the T, if you would like. I'm happy to do that.
Would anybody else find that helpful?
I don't.
Anybody else cares?
I was on the walk with you and Scott. I don't see it necessary, but I certainly don't have any objections. Scott's willing to do it.
I'm here
I'd like to see it. I think it's very important.
Okay.
And the other thing is, I don't know if this is the right place to bring it up, and I hate to bring it up, but I really don't think that benches in front of 4 West Main are going to be used. And
I think they'll be very popular, very, very popular.
how
Kids.
are you determining that?
Because we have none. And there are a lot of people that walk around that chat with people, putting a couple of benches in front of 4 West Main, and it makes the property more marketable.
There's already 2 up there.
They're tiny and certainly, obviously not ADA accessible. But I've sat on those too, and I've seen other kids do it. Other kids, like I'm a kid. I've seen kids do it. I think about downtown, after it's out, it gets pretty busy down there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we make a good decision about this. If our board members have time, could you go and sit or stand in front of 4 West Main? My feeling is that it is very noisy there. It's not that pleasant to sit and chat with a friend. I've worked in that garden there, and it's like, we have to yell at each other to talk. So just so everybody gets a sense, or true sense, of what it would be like to sit there. And then we'll have a true opinion, maybe, hopefully.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
when we were out on the site walk, one of the locations that was considered for benches was on the Blake Street side where the ramp is and the brick walkway. I just want to remind everyone that that is part of a design project that our planning director is working on, that downtown streetscape. So I guess the focus should be on the front of the building, not that side, because that's
Right.
all going to change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, thanks. All right,
Right,
continued.
right, sure.
All right.
Thanks, hard work.
You want the second?
Okay.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Mr. Chairman. Scott.
Board members.
We have, hopefully this will be quick, an ARPA request for the senior center to replace floor caps on 235 chairs. This came up at a council on aging meeting that I attended last week, and they asked if ARPA money was still available. I said, yeah, but get the request in really, really quick. Because that conversation came through me, I'm more than happy to counter it under, put it under my budget.
Yep.
And this is, some continued assistance with the senior center as they update. They did, some floor cleaning and chair cleaning and things like that we've helped with before. So this is another aspect on that. Any questions?
I just want to comment, I appreciate how hard Kendra is working to save money.
Yeah.
And the sweat equity and the people that are doing a lot of this work to help save us money. So, thank you.
And it took a lot of work even to find the vendor for
Yeah.
these, because they needed to track down the vendor of the original chairs, who was in Canada. It was a metric cap, so they couldn't find.
Who bought these chairs originally?
Yeah,
So that was that.
I like this idea, and if they need extra hands to help put these on, I'm more than happy to volunteer to help.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know who's actually going to do that. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to approve the use of ARPA funds in the amount of $3,409.80 for the purpose of replacing floor caps on 235 chairs at the senior center as presented in the memo by the senior center director included in the meeting packet pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, and to authorize the expenditure of such funds by the senior center director.
Is there a second? Oh, come on, somebody second this, please.
Is there, did I miss something about why
No?
this
I mean,
is
if,
not
Well, we
supported?
didn't have a discussion, really.
I'm sorry.
I'm not in
I mean, we
favor.
punted everything else.
I'm sorry.
We punted till the
Okay.
next meeting.
yeah, I don't know how much time they need to get this sorted out. I mean, if there's no second, it dies, and.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so we can discuss. Any concerns about this? Do we feel this is inappropriate?
We're down to the wire. I'm surprised at actually how little we have left, and I'd rather every penny go to sidewalk projects. I know it's not a lot of money, but.
The only thing is the chairs are ruining the floor because there's nothing on the bottom to slide. So every time people move the chairs, it's ruining the floor. I just wanted to throw that out.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is
Thank you.
it's a
Yeah.
relatively small amount of money. $3,400 will get us a couple inches.
Yeah,
of
it's like, it's
curbing.
$14.51 which you're not gonna get new chairs for that.
Right.
So, I mean, it's sort of,
Yeah.
what are you supposed to do? But I mean, to Julianne's point, it's like, we are having sort of our next meeting as sort of like the last hurrah of ARPA and kind of thinking, okay, what are all the moving parts? It is only $3,400, so hence the second.
But don't they have a Friends of fund that,
Who helps considerably with the senior center.
right?
Yes, and they're looking for us to help with this one. Well, the Friends do help with a lot.
I agree with Julianne. I think I'd wait. I mean, I don't know how much.
We have a second motion, so we can.
Yeah, no, we're going to vote on it, and then if the answer is no, it's no.
And all those voting seniors will see that vote.
Yeah. Someone's a politician here. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor? Laura?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Julianne?
No.
Lisa?
No.
I vote aye. Motion carries 3 in favor, 2 opposed. Thank you very much. And moving along, Jason, hey, we're done with talking about ARPA for a while. So, something big happened at the ballot last a week and a half or so ago?
Yeah, well, now that it's official that the fire station borrowing authorization has passed, since it was contingent on the ballot question passing at the November election, it has. So the next step is this interim step of just advancing ourselves the money so we can start the project. This is a routine practice. It's just a piece of paper telling us that we can use our own money to spend, that is a borrowing authorization prior to borrowing money. We can use our own money that we have in the bank to finance the start of this project.
Okay, excellent. Any questions?
Yeah, why do we have to do this? When will we get the big loan?
Well, so the next step would be to work with the financial advisor to plan out the borrowing. We're dotting all the Ts and crossing the Is with bond counsel to get a legal opinion so that we can take the bond to market.
Mm-hmm.
Before we do that, it'll be sometime between March and June when we do that. So between now and then, we need to have the authority to spend some of the money.
I see, okay. And it looks like work has already started.
No, the construction, what looked like construction activity that folks saw
Yeah.
out a couple weeks ago was part of the design process. So the HVAC system is geothermal driven. Part of the design process is drilling the first well for that and then measuring some things that I don't understand at all about that well.
Today there were people working on the drainage system.
I mean,
I talked to them.
there's no what I would call construction activity taking place because we haven't gone out to bid yet. But there is physical work involved during the final pieces of design. Maybe that was that. I don't know. I didn't see the work today.
That's being paid for out of the design budget. Okay.
We have not, as I said, we have not gone out to bid yet, so we have not spent a dime of the construction funds that were approved at town meeting.
Okay.
On the ballot. Okay,
Not yet.
right. Yeah, but
Well, this is like sort of standard-ish procedure, right, for something this large, what you have to do.
Correct. Generally, after we've issued short-term debt in the spring or late in the fiscal year, we bring forward some advances for the items that got approved at the current town meeting, because we don't borrow between April and June for something. We don't get it off the ground that quickly. Usually we do this advanced process in June. So this follows the town meetings that the borrowing authorization was made at. So if you look down this form, it says other advances outstanding. There's $2.5 million outstanding. Those are, I think, 3 items. It's 2 fire apparatus and I can't remember the other item off the top of my head.
Sorry.
But so anyway, those were the ones that were approved in June. At the end of these don't cross fiscal years. This has to close out before the end of the year. So we either have to borrow or not spend any money and do the advance again next year.
Okay.
okay, Lisa?
A couple questions, because I haven't done any of these before. The stabilization fund and the free cash. At this point, and you just said something now that you're looking to zero balance to the end of the year. Is that what this is really for? or is this money actually going to go to that $41 million cost?
It's simply to create some ability to enter into contracts and spend some of the money in advance of borrowing it. So it's a formulaic calculation for what our upper limit is for what we can advance to ourselves. We can't obviously spend the whole 41 million based on these formulas. We can spend up to 3.6 million between now and when we borrow permanently for the project.
All right, so that the stabilization fund, though, this is one of the first times we've used this amount of money from the stabilization fund to do something on a building? Is that right? Or that's not applying to the building?
The stabilization fund is just the balance that kind of backstops this loan that we've given ourselves. So this is the calculation of the limit of what we are allowed to advance to ourselves.
We're not using a dime
spending
of stabilization.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would require a vote at town meeting. This is simply using the money that's in the bank dedicated to the stabilization fund to be able to use that toward this project
Well,
in the short term.
You said we're not using a penny, and
Right.
you said we're,
Yeah, on a fund balance basis, the money, allows us to use money that we have in the bank dedicated toward the stabilization fund for this project. Simply on a cash basis, the money is still in the stabilization fund. It would take town meeting to vote money out of the stabilization fund and dedicate it to this permanently. So
And-
we're not using it permanently. It's a loan to ourselves so we can start the project.
so that money will all be repaid once we get the $41 million
Correct.
loan? Okay.
This allows us to start the process.
Correct.
Lisa, are you all set? Your hand is still up, so.
Yeah, I guess the other question that I have is, because the RFP hasn't been put together or whatever, finalized the bid, well, I'm pretty sure I'm saying the wrong words now because I'm getting tired. That 42 million was as a result of all the things that we saw on the 50% CD, is that correct?
41 million was what was approved by town meeting.
Correct, but it was approved because of what we had put together for our
The
costs.
50% construction document estimate is what generated the town meeting appropriation, yes.
Okay, and that was at 50% at the time we had the meeting. The
Was, yeah, it was a
paperwork.
construction document 50%, and that's not 50% of design, it's 50% of construction documents, which is the last phase of design.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so there was obviously things there that aren't going to be used. Who goes through that? Is that up to Steph to go through that and look at the dollars and cents and seeing what was asked for but then not utilized or that's not going to go through? Who does that for them before it goes out?
Yeah, that's done by the building committee, but really the design is approved. So the next step, the next time we have a dollar figure is when we get the results of the bids. So we'll go out to bid, and we'll get the bids back, we'll open the bids, then we'll know really what this thing will cost.
Hopefully, we'll be pleasantly surprised and
Yes,
we'll have
that's-
savings.
Yeah, yeah.
Or we won't spend as much as we anticipated.
Well, that's what I'm hoping, because I already know that there's some things that were listed that aren't going to use, so. All right,
So for sake of time,
Thank you.
I'll move the board vote to approve an execute advance in lieu of borrowing related to the borrowing authorization approved at the October 7th, 2024 special town meeting and as presented by Finance Director Jason Little.
Second.
Okay. Okay, so Mike, you made the motion. Was it Julianne that second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Is this-
Mike? Julianne?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, did you have an item?
does this need to be signed tonight?
Right here, but there are four of us here, so we can do it.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, was that an aye, Lisa?
No, I'm going to abstain, since I won't be there to sign it.
I vote aye. Vote is 4 in favor, no opposed, 1 abstention, and I'll pass this around for signatures.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we've got some subcommittee recommendations. Thank you very much for the new subcommittee for meeting and bringing some people forward. Are there any motions or anything else that people want to discuss?
I think you're first, Julianne.
Okay, yes, Mr. Chairman, I move the board vote to appoint Brianne Lefebvre Kaufman, actually, to the Community Affairs Committee for a partial 3-year term to expire on April 30th, 2027, as recommended by the Interview Subcommittee.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Mike?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor.
Great.
Thank you very much and congratulations. Next up,
I move the board vote to appoint John Johnson to the Conservation Commission for a partial 2-year term to expire on April 30th, 2026, as recommended by the Interview Subcommittee.
Second.
okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, Mike?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. Thank you and congratulations. Next up,
I move the board vote to appoint Sadie Stone to the Conservation Commission for a partial 3-year term to expire on April 30th, 2027, as recommended by the Interview Subcommittee.
motion's been made by Julianne, seconded by Laura. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Julianne?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor, and I think we have one more.
Yep. I move the board vote to appoint Rudiger Volk as an alternate to the Historic District Commission for a partial 3-year term to expire on April 30th, 2027, as recommended by the Interview Subcommittee.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mike. I heard the second from Laura first. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Mike?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. Good to see Rudiger get involved in some things. He comes to a lot of meetings.
Can I just say thank you to all these
Yeah.
new volunteers
Yeah.
and for the great interviews. I appreciate it.
It was a very difficult choice for some of them, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, a lot of talented folks who are volunteering their time for Northborough, so
Yeah,
it's great.
That's great that
Yeah.
we're
Awesome.
Very
getting a lot
talented.
of applications for things.
Yeah.
That's really good. Next up,
Shout out.
sorry, Lisa?
I said a great shout out for all the volunteers that we do have. We're very fortunate to have a number of people who want to come forward and help.
Definitely.
Great. Next up, we put on the agenda Municipal Buildings Reuse Committee discussion, brief discussion. Now that we know that the fire station project has passed, we know in somewhere around 18 to 24 months, the fire department will no longer need the current fire station, so I thought it was good for us to start the process to identify a future use of the existing fire station. We generally do that through committees. So, we've talked about this a little bit in the past, so I'm not looking for any vote, but more of direction that we would like to do something like this, and then I can work with Steph on crafting a charge that we could review at a future meeting and then start to advertise that, figure out how many people would be on it and so forth. We don't need to figure that out tonight. First question is, do we want to do this? Second question is, do we want to also include 4 West Main Street in that? That those are 2 town-owned buildings at opposite ends of Blake Street, really. They are related in that way, that they're so close to each other. The timing is different, that 4 West Main is ready to be used potentially at any time, so that would allow this committee to start working right away on something while they think about what to do for the Pierce Street property in the future.
I'd like to move this again to another agenda. I think we have too little time to make a discussion.
Julianne?
In the meantime, I would recommend that Steph talk to Lori Connors, because, there's that whole project, and she might have some ideas. Also, I've been wondering if we should include White Cliffs, just because where one thing goes, another thing will not go, and maybe, what she thinks, should we look at the whole picture, or concentrate on that
Oh, yeah.
smaller area.
I can discuss it, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have, again, I'm not anticipating any decisions on anything tonight, other than, you know, do we want to continue some discussions on this?
I think it's necessary.
Yeah,
We
okay.
have,
Yes, I would agree.
Okay.
that we
Great. So, all right, so I'll work with Steph on drafting some draft things for an upcoming meeting. Does not necessarily need to be December 2nd on this, but.
Great.
But sooner rather than later is good, and that way we can show effort. Because what I don't want is 2 years, the fire department moves out, and then we've got another
Oh my
empty
gosh.
building sitting there.
No.
I want it, I really
For
want.
100 years.
Yeah, exactly, like the old fire
No.
station sat around for a very long time. I don't want that to happen here. I want us to know exactly what's happening the moment they move out. All right, and then, so I think that ends that discussion. Lisa, your hand is up. Did you have anything else on that item or no?
Nope, next item.
Okay, next we have Applefest Municipal Expense Review. We've had a number of discussions here about wanting to talk a little bit more about Applefest. We have invited the Applefest Committee, you know, which is an outside organization, it's not a town committee, to come join us. Thus far, they have not committed to that, correct?
Correct.
Haven't heard anything new. I'm hoping that they will. Meanwhile, we did ask for Diane to gather the municipal expenses and how those get sorted out financially. I'm just going to go to that page on my agenda to make sure we can discuss it. And so we see what this is. From my perspective, Applefest is the single most important event that we have in the town. I think it's important for, you know, for everyone to be involved. It's important, I think, for the board to have at least some involvement. So I hope that the Applefest Committee is willing to discuss that with us, because they run it. It's run by a private organization. They do a great job. Applefest is a stellar event. And so I don't want anyone to think that we're looking to make any dramatic changes or anything else. But from what I worry about is at some point, you know, one of the key members of that committee decides that they're retired and moving to, you know, a different part of the country, or something else happens, and all of a sudden, who's going to do it? And I think we as a community need to make sure that the event will always continue, because it is so important. It's important to residents, very important to businesses in town and businesses out of town that come in to exhibit at the street fair and Taste of Northborough and the farmers market and everything else. So that's, from my perspective, that's why I'm very interested in continuing this discussion. Diane, thank you very much for gathering that. I mean, it looks to me like most of the costs are covered. There was one, uh, 10 firefighters paid $2,600 paid by Department ADOT. What is?
That was my question, was.
Yeah, do we know what that means?
Is that the ancillary duty overtime?
yes.
Okay, so, but those are public funds.
And I think the general fund is also, if you look at the front page of the
Yeah, I thought
memo,
there was another one. Oh,
the
okay, over there, yes.
$9,706.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I mean, this is you know, an important public event that the community benefits a lot, but I think we should further the discussion.
Yeah, I would like more collaboration, especially around communication. So we're all on the same page, because there were a lot of questions
Yeah.
this year that came up that I think we could have dealt with a little bit more
Yeah.
clearly for the community.
Lisa?
I do think we have to have a discussion in depth, but again, tonight would not probably be my night to do it. We're already past
Yeah.
10.
Well, and the committee's not here.
Right, yeah, I think we need to have this with them, and hopefully they are, you know, they'll come join us for a meeting.
Okay.
you.
Possibly one of you or a couple of you could go to their meeting. I don't know how often they.
They're a private organization, so I anticipate their meetings are not public. If they invited us, I'd be happy to go.
Yeah,
And I think, yeah, so
okay, moving forward.
hopefully we're,
Okay, any other
Any
comments or
response?
questions on this one?
no, thank you.
Okay. Moving along, reports. Are there any reports tonight? And I will request people be expedient. Julianne, any reports tonight?
Okay, I'm just going to ask one thing. So there are some ideas from a garden club member, and there were some references to like a retaining wall in some of the sidewalk projects. I want to make sure that the stone wall is moved someplace. So I don't know if you're aware, Stephanie, there's a stone wall on the fire station property that several people in town have said we would like to save that, save those stones for something else. And I just want to make sure, like, that those are going to be removed before construction starts or at the most advantageous time, because, you know, things fall through the cracks, and I think that there will be some really good uses for that.
Okay.
I can,
I can follow up on that
Yeah.
through the chair. I do have an email, I
There has
think,
been
with
some
Scott.
discussion
Yes.
about that, so we'd have to make that decision very, very soon, because when the bid specs go out, they will direct the contractor of what to do. So the moment we release those bids, and they have not been released yet, we're committing to what will happen. And the default would be the contractor who does the site work would be responsible for getting rid of them, taking them off site, leaving them on site, whatever. We can include direction in that as far as
think we
you
already
must
have.
bring them, so we need to have the location identified as to where they'll
Okay,
be
okay.
stored. And if there's a cost in that, we would have to figure that out, whether that would fit within the construction budget or whether we would have to allocate additional funds. So those
Okay,
things need to be
I can
figured
send you that information. I think there's going to be a discussion at MPIC on Thursday anyway about this.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, good.
Okay.
And I'll look
That's it
for
for
the
me.
email.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Any reports tonight?
The Northborough Fire Department will be collecting toys for Tots, November 16th through December 10th, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. There's also a website where you can make donations in lieu of purchasing new toys, and that's toysfortotsusa.org. But other than that, no other reports.
Okay, great. Laura, any reports tonight?
So tonight I got to meet with a Daisy Troop in town to talk about town government. We hopefully have some very enthusiastic future voters in town. I enjoyed the Veterans Day luncheon. I wish everybody a happy Veterans Day, and I thank the Senior Center for hosting that, as well as our delegates for joining us. Special thanks to all of the scouts and volunteers that participated at Scouting for Food. It was the single most important food donation event for our town. It was highly successful. Thank you to all the election workers for a great election. I appreciate all the hard work. I especially appreciate them not parking on the basketball courts. I love the Assabet art exhibit down in Town Hall. Thank you for that. And thank you to the volunteers who removed all the flags at the cemetery. And they'll be putting them back up again before Memorial Day. Troop 101 is starting their wreath sale. You can go to the Northborough Troop 101 website for the details on ordering them. The tree lighting is going to take place on December 7th at Blake Street. And that concludes my reports.
Great. Lisa, any reports tonight?
I do. Today I attended the MMA Public Holiday Decorations in Your Community Overview and Important Legal Considerations. And at some point I will bring that forward and share with you what I've learned. A lot of talk about policies in advance of doing things, being proactive and not reactive to making policies so that it's all-inclusive or flags. They talked about flags quite a bit, so I know that that's been a discussion that we've had. Also, I want to give the scholarship update from the scholarship committee. And it is the scholarship's second annual online auction. Bidding for Bright Futures will be held from Friday, November 29th to Friday, December 6th. You don't want to miss it. This year's items will not be disappointing. There will be items every age will enjoy, and it's a great way to start your holiday shopping while supporting scholarships for the Northborough High School seniors. Last year's auction raised $2,300, and the committee hopes this year surpasses that goal. Sneak peeks into items will be shared on the committee's Facebook page, and a list of all the donors is on their website package, which can be accessed via the town website. Be sure to mark your calendar. In addition, they continue to accept tribute donations, which can be made in honor or in memory of a specific person who holds a special place in your heart. All fundraising efforts benefit the scholarship fund, and awards are made to recipients in the spring. And that's courtesy of Liz Nolan. We, the board, received a lovely thank you note from Cindy Beals. I think we talked about this before, the passing of her husband, who was a great volunteer for our community. And I'll leave this in the office so everybody can read it, but it basically says, "Thank you so much for your kindness during this difficult time. Tom very much enjoyed being on the boards in town and what everyone achieved. He was one in a million, and we will all miss him dearly." Also, there is, I know we discussed this, probably not in public, but recently there was an event that was happening at Melican Middle School, and parking on the brand new basketball courts and tennis courts was happening. And I'm not sure if that got signed, but I did talk to Ally from the rec department, who knows that the promise was there would be no parking on these renovated courts. So I hope that we will get some signage out there as soon as possible and find a way to keep that message going, because I think a lot of people don't necessarily watch our meetings, and I don't know if the superintendent wrote a letter to all the parents from that school or not, but I think it's important. We spent a lot of money to redo those courts, and I don't think I want to see the same thing happen.
I will just say briefly on that I had a conversation with the superintendent of schools and the DPW director while that was ongoing, and if there isn't a sign on the basketball courts yet, there will be very, very soon.
Great, I think that's great. Thank you so much. Also, and speaking with, during the Traffic Safety Committee meeting, found out that there was an accident on the short Davis Street where West Main Street intersects, and they had a loss of their blinking 25-mile-an-hour street sign, speed limit sign, that at the time it was put there was talked about being a part of a pilot program. So right now, I don't know if there's any interest in replacing that sign, but I would like to get some information from the pilot program and how well it worked.
Have you emailed Steph, and she could speak with the DPW director about that? That would be my suggestion.
Okay. All right, and also, again, back to the MMA and the flag policy, I think that's something we need to probably address sooner than later.
I would ask the policy subcommittee to take a look at the policy. Speaking of.
Yes, we will.
We
Great.
will coordinate with staff on the best time
my
to do that.
Okay. Great.
That's my reports for the night.
Great, thank you. I was also going to mention a couple things that were already mentioned, including the tree lighting. We will have the Community Affairs Committee at our next meeting on December 2nd to talk about that, where we formally close Blake Street for the tree lighting on December 7th. We'll also discuss at that one the menorah lighting, which will be December 30th. And that concludes my report. Next up, future agenda items. Does anyone have any questions or anything about future agenda items? Laura?
Can I just, I don't know if this is future agenda or future business, but can we get an update on the Aqueduct Bridge Trail project and the recodification project that was working on with,
Could we ask, Lori on the Aqueduct project and Andy on the recodification? Maybe he could just send us a memo.
Thank you, that's perfect.
Yeah, they could send us memos on.
Yep, both of those are fine.
Yeah. Good. Any other items under future agendas?
I just have one, and I'm sure it's going to kick back to the policy committee, but the policy on minutes and how we're going to want our minutes, we still have to have that discussion.
Yep, I have that actually potentially down for December 2nd. I'll take a look, I'll discuss with Steph. We've already put a lot of items on December 2nd, and there were already a few already on there. So if it's not the 2nd, it's going to be soon. But yeah, that's an item we did get, as we discussed back a couple of meetings, we got some information from council on that. So that will be a follow-up discussion for the full board.
Perfect.
And it's potentially may go to the policy subcommittee if we needed it to.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Anybody else have anything on future agenda items? Okay, I'm sorry, reports. I did not ask Steph or Diane for
I
any
do have
reports.
a
Yes.
quick,
Okay.
accounting, we have a new assistant town accountant named Kristen, who started last Tuesday. She has a solid background with accounts payables and will fit nicely in with the department. Our finance director, Jason, has distributed the budget packet for all of our department heads to begin their budget process. Budget submissions are due into my office by December 9th. We'll be meeting with department heads soon in order to assist them with their budgets and see what their priorities are. Of course, Jason keeps reminding them to obligate ARPA funds, so we've been through that. And we've begun meeting with our insurance representatives to project the fiscal year 26 costs. Town clerk, the town of Northborough, was randomly selected for an election audit last Tuesday, the 12th. Andy and friends had to hand count 2,280 ballots, which they were able to do in only 2 hours. I'd like to thank Andy, his department, and all of our election workers for doing an incredible job this last election season. Planning, there has been some new development activity in town. An application for a common driveway on Reservoir Street is being considered for 3 single-family homes, an application on Hudson for a 2-family dwelling and senior living facility on King Street. Lori, our town planner, discussed grant potential for 4 West Main in order to encourage the redevelopment or repurposing of properties by applying for the underutilized property group program. Water service has been installed at the dog park. Paving is this week, and fencing will be installed over the winter, anticipating a spring opening. I walked Blake Street with Lori, our planner, prior to the Downtown Improvement Committee meeting. The committee had a good conversation about adding needed parking spaces while maintaining a green space design. The committee envisions a place where people can walk through and rest. DPW, Scott discussed his ABRA obligations, as we heard tonight. HVAC system for MIS GIS is in the process of being repaired, but parts are on back order. They're looking into different equipment due to the delay. One option is to possibly install mini splits. The dental office at 4 West Street's HVAC system needs to be repaired as well. As Lori Connor, our planner, mentioned, we could look into that undeveloped utility properties grant program for this need. Fire, as most of us have heard, residents have approved the development of a new fire station by town meeting and town ballot vote. The town is excited to get started on the project. High fire danger is still in effect. Northborough has reissued the burn ban and are asking people to remain vigilant due to lack of rain. I heard we're going to get rain Thursday. The department is now looking to hire 8 more staff from being awarded the SAFER grant. They'd like to hire them by end of March. The department has prepared a recruitment video to help with this. Police have developed a workplace safety video they produced with help from Cable Access. We will be using this video to train all of our employees. Police and fire have also completed an active shooter training. David from MIS GIS is working on cybersecurity training for staff and noted that Civic Plus, our website, would be making upgrades by the end of the year. Assessors, of course, he presented tonight the tax classification hearing. So we're done with that. Cable bids for the AV project at the library purchased with ARPA funds have been coming in. Dana will be obligating funding as soon as possible. Senior Center, Kendra put on a fabulous Veterans Day lunch last week with a full house, literally and figuratively. Great job, and many thanks to our past and present veterans. And that is all I have.
Great, thank you.
You're
Diane,
welcome.
anything?
No report.
Okay, great. All right. Next up, we have public comment. Is there anyone in our audience, either in person or remote, that wishes to offer any comment before we close out the public portion of our meeting? We do have one. Patrick Higgins. Go ahead, I'll bring you in. If you could identify yourself and let us know what's on your mind, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Patrick Higgins.
Hi, Patrick.
OpenMeetingPortal.com from Northport, Alabama. Just wanted to make a couple of comments. First off, I want to thank you for our extended discussions on the proper citation for the executive sessions. I see you have corrected that, so good job there.
Thank you.
The minutes are looking much better. The other comment I have is, when is Northborough going to start closed captioning their meetings? And the reason I ask is Fairhaven and Somerset have already started closed captioning their public body meetings live on YouTube, and just wanted to know when you guys were going to follow suit.
I know that, I don't know all the answers to the question. I know YouTube generates captions automatically. I don't know if they do that for live meetings, but that's a reasonable question. Maybe we can ask.
Share you, Mark Alucci at the Somerset Town Administrator was very involved with the Somerset Access Cable Television, and they worked on it together, and they got that done in about a month. So that might be a resource to reach out to Mark Alucci at the Town of Somerset, and he can probably assist you in getting that added to your meetings.
Great. We will take a look at that, and we'll speak with our cable director about how to make that happen, because that is important. I appreciate you bringing that to our attention, Patrick.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. Are there any other comments or questions from members of the public? Okay, nothing else. I declare public comment closed. Is there any other item to come before the board before we do executive session? Laura?
I don't know if there's a way. So we got an email today from a resident who's trying to contact the town moderator. I know that's a separate board from ours.
Yeah.
Is there a way that we can make sure he's getting his emails so that the resident gets the appropriate feedback?
I can follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Easy enough, yeah.
I was just going to say, with the past election, congratulations to our two state reps, Rep. Kilcoyne, Rep. Donahue, State Senator Kennedy for getting reelected, along with Congressman McGovern, Senator Warren, and President-elect Trump. If he would like to do ARPA 2, we would certainly be receptive to it if he's possibly listening, maybe. But that's all.
Sure. Okay, do you have anything else? All right, so we will be going to executive session for the conclusion of the evening. Is there a motion for executive session?
There is indeed. I move the board vote to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 3, discussion regarding litigation update with respect to SA Farm, and pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 7, review and consideration of the following executive session meeting minutes, October 21, 2024, and due to the chairman's determination that discussion regarding these matters in an open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating or the negotiating position of the board. The board will not return to open session and will adjourn directly from executive session.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Lisa, seconded by Julianne. Purely from the open meeting law perspective, I think we would technically return to open session for the sole purpose of adjourning, which is, similar, but maybe not the exact wording to the motion. And any other discussion on that? All those in favor, Lisa?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. We are going to executive session at 10:25 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.